You're tuned in to Western New York's election night coverage on 89.1 The Point, WBSU Brockport.
Hello and welcome to the broadcast here, everybody. This is the 2024 election coverage broadcast that we're doing here for 89.1 The Point. Lots to get through for these 6 hours that we are going to stay with you all the way. I am Hunter Wright, your host, and I am here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Robbie Merrill. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, so again, this is going to be quite a contentious year. I think that's factual information here, isn't it, Robbie? And
I think this year is going to change everything going forward.
Absolutely. And so being that this is the pinnacle of what this whole year is about, we are going to have stuff going on at the Republican and Democratic centers. We're going to be taking it down to them in a few minutes, actually, and this is sort of the rhythm that we're going to have. And it's going to be quite a whirlwind, and there will be so much information at you that your head will spin.
Yeah, stick with us for the rest of the night to hear from the two teams that we have down in Monroe County headquarters. They're going to get all the speeches, get all the victory speeches, interviewing candidates, interviewing other people associated with this election. It's just going to be a great time overall. Absolutely. And I should say that right now, you know, we've interviewed a lot of different candidates and political figures, haven't we? So those were quite an experience, and we'll be playing some of those as we go on throughout this 6-hour adventure as a radio station. We'll be getting, I'll tease one right now, Mayor Margie Blackman, the mayor of Brockport. Yeah, all those who have election fatigue this season, we certainly feel you. We're definitely up there with you, especially after 6 hours. We're going to be joining you. So, you know, that's some factual information there. But I will say that it will not stop. And as we go throughout this time, we will also be talking about different national information that's coming in as well. It won't just be local. It'll be the whole business. And we will make sure to do interviews with candidates live, so to speak, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, Robbie, what do you think about all this? I think the real important hour is 9 o'clock. That's when everything gets reported in New York. So certainly tune in to listen to us then. We have live updates from the state website coming into us. As soon as they get on the website, we'll let you guys know. Absolutely. And so, you know, honestly, with all these interviews and stuff that's going on, you know, being that this is a very important year, it's just absolutely interesting for everyone to stick around and hear what we got going on here in the Monroe County area. And if you're out and about, just a reminder that polls close at 9, but if you're in line before then, you legally still have the right to vote. So if you haven't gone out and voted yet, get in line, take your time, have a good night, participate in the greatest freedom that we have. Yeah, and this is also a very special year because we also have Proposition 1. Robbie, I know that you know quite a bit about Proposition 1 being it's on the ballot. Proposition 1 is interesting, especially from a strategic standpoint for both parties. For the Republicans, they voted they pushed really hard against it. That could possibly drive opposition voter turnout, which could potentially land a lot more Democratic seats than would normally be there. But if this fails to go through for the Democrats, they don't lose much. All the rights that are on that proposition are already New York state law. So it's more of a win-win for the Democrats. I think it's strong. But it could also drive voter turnout on the other side for the Republicans, leading to higher vote counts for them. I think this year we're going to see record voting in the state. It's just there's so much happening. This is such an important election that I think more people will participate than ever. Right. And this will be quite a year also for the House of Representatives and the Senate, being that those are quite contentious. And I know for a fact especially that the House of Representatives as well. Was it 10% is actually really contentious going on in the 435 seats or something like that? Yeah. So every House of Representatives is elected every 2 years as opposed to every 6 with the Senate. So they're constantly running, but only about 10% of races are competitive. In New York, those are NY22 is one of the big ones to watch. That's a big seat. That's my home seat in Syracuse. So I think watching that one will be very important. See kind of where the nation shifts overall. Yeah, quite gripping. So please stick around as we will for the next 6 hours. All right, so we're going to be taking it away to the hotel. It's the center, the Republican Center. We have our individuals live at that center, Joe Kaiser and Dominic Muszek.
here on 89.1 The Point.
Right now, we're watching people kind of stream in slowly, little by little. And, you know, right now, there's only probably 5 or 6 people here. Dominic, what are you seeing?
That sounds about 5 or 6 people. Seems like we're kind of at the beginning of things, where people are starting to fade in and prepare for an evening of election results. Beautiful weather for election results, too. Nice in the 60s.
Yeah,
good weather.
It was a really great day. In fact, earlier today when I was, you know, going out to do my daily activities, I was like, wow, I should have not worn sweatpants today. Maybe I should have worn something with shorts. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we're here. We're hoping to get some interviews with some politicians tonight and you know, gather some information about how the races are going. And you know, we're going to have a great night of coverage here at the Republican Party here at the Italian Community Center.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. And that does it for us here in Rochester. Back to you guys in the studio.
Hunter Wright here from 89.1 The Point. We're going to be taking it down to the Democratic Hotel here on 89.1 The Point. Lucas Vargas reporting.
But right now, it's just a lot of setting up and just waiting for the candidates to start rolling in. And, you know, you could feel kind of the tension in the air. You feel something's kind of brewing right now, but nothing. No one's here right now, but you could tell there is some tension. And, you know, you want to get to the findings of who's going to win these races. Polls do close at 9 o'clock in New York State, but that'll do it from us here live at the Hyatt Hotel with the Monroe County Democrats for 89.1 The Point. Now let's take it back to the studio.
All right, so that was that from the Democratic Hotel, also known as the, well, you tell me again. It was the Hyatt?
They were located at the Hyatt.
Not a...
It's a very nice area.
Mm-hmm. And so that we have that for the Republicans and Democrats down there right now. Again, there's nothing really going on right now. It's going to take a while. Things close. Well, the voting will close at 9. So with that, you know, we have to wait and see. But I would just like to also tease at the fact that we are going to be having a very special individual on our show at the latter half of this hour. That would be Dr. French. Robbie, could you tell us some more information?
Yeah, Dr. French is a professor here at SUNY Brockport. He focuses on foreign policy, so we're going to get into the foreign policy aspects of this election, looking at how this is going to affect the war in Ukraine, Russia, you know, anything with Iran, U.S. diplomacy, all that stuff. Join us at the end of the hour to hear about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be a nice 20-minute conversation amongst the three of us hearing this robust information about elsewhere. All right, well, that's all we got from inside the studio. We're going to take it to a break, and we're going to have more information as we get closer to it. Stay tuned with the interview with Dr. French. Thank you. This is the 2024 election coverage that we're doing here on 89.1 The Point, and I am Hunter Wright here at you live right now in the studio, and we have a special guest here today. It's Dr. French of SUNY Brockport, and I'm here with my co-host, Robbie Merrill. Let's have a conversation, shall we? All right, let's bring it over to Robbie.
Hello, everyone. With me here tonight is Eric French, professor of political science here at SUNY Brockport. How you doing, Dr. French?
Doing well tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great. So can you quickly go over your history qualifications just for our viewers to get a feel?
Sure. I got my PhD from Syracuse University, where I had the chance to learn from a bunch of great faculty, including a bunch of former policymakers. I was part of a consortium brought together by Carnegie that included Republicans and Democrats from high levels within the national security community, and they taught me a lot about American foreign policy, and that's really been my interest ever since. I study international relations, mostly national security, and again, U.S. foreign policy. I guess I've written quite a bit about U.S. foreign policy, especially our alliance relationships in Asia. Recently, I published a chapter on the South Korean Navy during the Korean War as part of Allied sort of coalition operations there. So I'm very, very much interested in the role of the United States in the world.
All right. That's quite a bit.
It is. It definitely is.
So just to start off on the election stuff, can you give a quick overview of the candidates' proposed foreign policy positions?
Yeah, so it's tough, right, because there's so many different issues out there in foreign policy, and there's a lot the candidates have proposed. I would say Harris's pitch, like overall, basically is stability. I'll keep our foreign policy headed in the same direction as it's been for the last 4 years. I'll emphasize American engagement and diplomacy, cooperation with key partners, especially democracies. I'll keep the U.S. engaged in key international institutions and organizations like the United Nations. I'll keep us in key agreements like the Paris Climate Accord. And I'll try to advance our interests through like peaceful diplomacy more than anything else. I'll compete with American adversaries like Russia, Iran, China, but I'm willing to compromise them when our interests align, like on climate change, for instance. And then I would say you can contrast that with Trump, who's made the pitch that things need to be shaken up, right? I'm going to take us in a different direction. I represent change rather than continuity. I'll play hardball with American partners and allies to try to get them to contribute more than they have in the past to our interests. I'll pull back from some of the international institutions where I think maybe we've got a raw deal. I'll pull us out of the Paris Climate Accords. And like Harris, right, I'll compete with American adversaries like Iran, Russia, China. And again, like Harris, I'm willing to cooperate with them on issues where there's some overlap in our interests. So there's some similarity there, but there's also some important differences. And I guess I would also say, like, from a big worldview perspective, I do think the candidates are coming from sort of different backgrounds or different philosophies on foreign policy. I think Trump represents what great scholar Walter Russell Mead once called the Jacksonian tradition in American foreign policy. Jacksonian tradition puts like a heavy emphasis on national security, pride, and independence.
Referring to, obviously, Andrew Jackson, our 7th president.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And so puts a heavy emphasis on that, says we need a sort of a restrained policy, but also we need a very, very powerful military. We don't want to get too bogged down in multilateral cooperation through institutions and treaties and whatnot and close alliances. We need a great degree of sovereignty, independence, and military power first and foremost. And you can kind of contrast that with Harris. Puts a heavier emphasis on multilateral cooperation and the promotion of not just national security, but democracy and human rights, which I think puts her within the Wilsonian tradition, right? Going back to Woodrow Wilson, the Wilsonian tradition. That security is important, but we also need to advance democracy and protect democracy and human rights around the world, because that's better for American prosperity and stability and security. And we need to do that through American military might, but also through cooperative partnerships with a bunch of different states. So I'd say big picture, I do think they're coming from broadly different backgrounds and worldviews when it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to see the stark differences in how they want to take us. How do you see the candidates' foreign policy stance affecting voter turnout this year?
Yeah, I would say, so it's interesting, I would say probably not that much. Americans care about foreign policy, certainly, but not as much as they care about other issues like the economy, I would say. So I would say, like, right now, what's going to drive most voters to the polls is how they think the candidates are going to affect their pocketbooks at the end of the day, how they think they're going to affect the economy. And that is bound up in foreign policy, right? Because tariff policy, which is a big part of both candidates' policy, matters for the economy. But I think defense is important to a lot of American voters, but they see it as a secondary concern to overall the economy as a whole.
Okay, and once again, we're here with Dr. French of SUNY Brockport here on 89.1 The Point as we are making our adventure going on to the 6-hour adventure anyway. Okay, so here's one thing I wanted to also ask. In the historical perspective of presidents and the differences from Harris and Trump, which one do you think is mostly I don't know if appreciated is the right word to use, but what's more has been adopted overall in their perspectives of foreign policy?
So which has been more common, do you think?
Yeah, more common.
Yeah, so recently I would say the Wilsonian perspective has had a lot more influence in American foreign policy. I think Harris is drawing on what used to be sort of considered the mainstream in American foreign policy in the national security community, which was you want an America that's very actively engaged in international institutions, that's supporting the liberal international order, sometimes what we call it, the network of trade and institutions and arrangements and alliances that the U.S. constructed at the end of World War II. And I think that Trump represents in some ways a continuity of that, but in other ways a break from it. I think he is much more skeptical, following the Jacksonian tradition, of some of these deals like the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, other organizations that we set up to sort of structure the global economy and global diplomacy. And, I think the Jacksonian perspective hasn't been as influential lately, which is one of the reasons why I think one of the reasons why Trump represents a lot of change when it comes to American foreign policy, potentially.
All right, so moving from the bigger picture to more specifics, how would a Trump or a Harris win affect the war in Ukraine? I know that's Rochester is a very large Ukrainian population, and I know people care very deeply about that war.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. It's hard to say. With a Harris win, I'm going to be boring and say probably more of the same. I think Harris has indicated she's going to continue with the Biden administration's approach, which is funnel arms to the Ukrainians, encourage them to fight on as long as they're willing and able, and try to drain the Russians as much as possible, let them throw men and material into the war, and weaken an important American adversary in the process. For the Trump administration, a Trump win, it's hard to say. It's interesting. He's gone back and forth on the Ukrainian issue. I think he has indicated an interest in negotiating a quick end to the war, right? Is that actually achievable? That's a second question. That's a secondary question, right? I would expect that the Trump administration will make a big push if he's elected to end the war in Ukraine, to bring an end to it. And we can throw a lot of time and effort and resources into that, but it won't guarantee that we can get it. So if the Russians play hardball, right, and try to demand tons and tons of concessions from us, is Trump going to just give them everything they demand? I kind of doubt it, right, because that ends up looking like a major loss for him as one of the first big decisions and initiatives of his presidency. So if the Russians play hardball, which I expect they would, they're not just going to give us everything we want in the war, then do we just revert to existing U.S. policy? Would the Trump administration say, fine, we're going to play hardball too, we're going to continue funneling arms to the Ukrainians until you're willing to give us more in the offer, right? So it's hard to say. It'll kind of depend on what a Trump administration could actually get out of Russia in negotiations. And I'm not sure they could get much right now.
How do you see it if it were to be with, say, Harris? If Harris were to be there, what would be the difference on that one?
I would say for Harris, I would expect more of the same. She's going to continue funneling weapons to Ukraine for the most part. I think if the Ukrainians indicate they want to negotiate, they want to end the conflict, I think that both Harris and Trump, either one of them would stand behind the Ukrainians in doing that and try to facilitate peaceful negotiations. But I don't think you're going to see a Harris administration open by making this big pitch to the Russians for ending the conflict.
You think that it would be actually quite similar with how Biden has treated it, or?
That's the trick. I think so. Harris hasn't necessarily given us a lot to indicate what she'd do differently from the Biden administration. So the best we have to go on is what the Biden administration has done so far, expecting continuity rather than a lot of change there.
All right. So speaking of the Russians, today there was a bunch of bomb threats in Georgia. They were fortunately unsubstantiated. They were false. But the Secretary of State came out and said that those threats were from Russia. They came from Russia. They did not disclose how they did it. But what does the Kremlin gain from doing this? What is the end goal here?
Yeah, so Russia has been very, very critical of the United States, of American democracy, and has a track record of trying to make it look like American democracy is deeply flawed, of sort of sowing chaos in the electoral process and trying to make basically the American people lose faith in their democratic system, right? That has been a big objective for Russia because they see us as an adversary. Any bit they can knock us back, they see as an advantage to them and their interests because, again, they think that we are their chief obstacle to greater power and prestige and respect in the world. And so I think this is mostly just about creating as much difficulty and chaos as possible in the U.S., trying to make us look bad, effectively.
Okay.
Is there a reason they targeted Georgia, do you think, or was it?
It's hard to say. I mean, there were concerns, right? There were theories about voter fraud in Georgia before in the previous election. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe it's just an opportunity that presented itself that they just took. I'm not sure, though.
So, going back, how do you think that a Harris or Trump win would change the U.S. relationship with China. How would the Chinese go about like countering the U.S. depending on who wins?
Yeah, so it would be interesting. I think there are very significant points of similarity between Harris and Trump on China. They both identify China as like our chief geopolitical threat and adversary. They both said, hey, we're going to be tough on China. We're going to compete with China. Harris was saying we're going to make sure they don't win the race for advanced technology. Trump obviously will constantly say China is eating our lunch, China is taking advantage of us, we need to keep them in check. And so there is continuity there between the two of them in terms of how they view China. There are some differences. Trump has put a heavy emphasis on tariffs. He said we're going to potentially triple tariffs on China, which would be a really dramatic economic step. Harris isn't opposed to tariffs. Like the Biden administration has kept all of Trump's tariffs on China and created some new ones. But she isn't pitching something on that level, like that amount of separation from the Chinese economy. I think, how would this change relations with China? Tricky. I don't think the Chinese are actually going to alter their strategy based on who takes the White House. I think the Chinese have basically been trying to advance their interests by modernizing their military, right, advancing their influence in the world through the Belt and Road Initiative, right, through economic investment, and putting pressure and sort of pushing some of their neighbors around to get more clout in the region. I think they'll do that regardless of whether Trump or Harris takes the presidency. There might be some tactical differences in how they interact with us. Like if Trump has disagreements with American allies in Asia, I would imagine China will try to exploit that. If Harris criticizes human rights practices, key U.S. partners in the Middle East, you might expect China to try to exploit that and woo those allies away from U.S. influence. But I think overall, I think the Chinese feel like their long game is paying off, and I don't think they're going to deviate from it.
All right, so coming up on the end of this interview, I just wanted to ask something a bit more controversial, but I think is very important. Many of Donald Trump's supporters think that other countries would be less willing to work with the U.S. if we had a woman as president. How would having a woman as president affect U.S. diplomacy, or if at all? Yeah, so it's tricky, right? Because it kind of depends on who you ask, right? And it kind of depends on which supporters you're talking to. YouGov poll that I looked at recently found like almost 70% of Trump supporters said women were just as qualified as men to be president, which I think is a pretty substantial majority. But still, right, there is discussion over the role of gender in the presidency and disagreement there. I would say that, my personal perspective, I don't think it's going to make almost any difference at all. All right. So coming up on the last question here, what is a significant new foreign policy issue that the next administration is going to have to deal with? That's tough to say, right? Because, of course, going into the George W. Bush administration, nobody expected we would have been in Afghanistan right after that. It's hard to say. I would say dealing with artificial intelligence and negotiating treaties or arrangements to try to regulate that might be a new issue that becomes a major issue for the administration. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our interview tonight. Thank you so much, Dr. French.
Thanks a lot.
Is there any last closing thoughts you got for our listeners you can throw in real quick?
Oh, go out and vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. Keep listening to us here at 89.1 The Point for more election coverage.
And next up, of course, is our Man on the Street interview that we actually have on our Spotify as well. But we're going to play it for you all. This is quite interesting information. The demographic pertains to those that are on the SUNY Brockport campus. All right, here we go. Thank you.
You are about to hear a compilation of on-the-street interviews conducted on the campus of SUNY Brockport. 89.1 The Point went around and interviewed several students about their opinions surrounding the upcoming election.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Do you plan on voting in the upcoming election? Why or why not?
I do plan to, and I think it's because this year it's even more critical. It's now more than ever. I just feel like I'm really, even more tied to this election, seeing how it's progressed, and definitely want to cast my vote in.
Are you a registered voter?
No, I'm not. Not yet.
Okay, so are you planning on registering?
Yes, I am.
Are you a registered voter?
I am. I registered actually a couple weeks ago.
Okay, do you plan on voting in the election in a couple weeks? Why or why not?
I do plan on voting because I feel like it actually matters. Growing up, I didn't feel like voting mattered much, but now that I'm here and I have the ability to do it, it actually is important to me.
Are you a registered voter?
I'm actually registering right now.
Do you plan on voting in the election? Why or why not?
I do. I plan on voting because I think it's important for me to have a choice at who becomes president.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Do you plan on voting in the election in about a month? Why or why not?
I actually do because it's my birthday on election day, so I can finally vote.
Okay, and how does the national election affect your decisions at the local level elections?
I don't know if I've really thought about that. I don't know. I think I've just thought of national, not really local, personally.
Politics isn't really something I was taught in school. I just knew who the big dogs were. They didn't teach us about congressmen and women, representatives, things like that. But now that I'm here and I can influence it in some way, I feel like seeing what's going on the national scale is making me be more aware of what's going on locally for me. So I would be more engaged in what's going on. So I think it would improve how active I am.
How do you believe the national election will impact your community at a local level?
I believe it will impact our community by socially, economically, impact households and comschools and stuff.
How do you think the national election will impact your community at a local level?
I would say because coming from an immigrant family, I think that I feel like one side is more for the immigrants. I'm hoping that they help us as immigrants more. But then again, if they don't, win, I'm afraid that might affect my people in a way.
Addressing what issues would make you want to vote for a candidate at a local level election?
Like I said, immigration. Just immigration laws for it to, get better for people who want to create a life for themselves here when they can't create a good life for themselves in their country.
Addressing what issues would make you vote for a candidate at the local level elections?
I think just the overall well-being of the community and supporting the people, specifically societal issues like LGBTQ rights, things like that. I think we need to have more discussions around that. Also talking about how we can better the communities for all people of all races, cultures, etc. So if we, talked about that more, that would definitely fuel my decision making and, hearing both sides of each party's stance, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, and addressing what issues would make you vote for a candidate at local level elections?
Definitely LGBTQ plus rights, women and what they're able to do with their bodies.
Community health, that's a big thing. Healthcare, that would be my main priority.
They would have to address everybody's problems. I know that's hard to do considering politics is two sides to a coin. It would be hard to address everybody's problems, but if I hear a politician is hitting a lot of points for more than one specific group of people, then I feel like I would be more inclined to support or be more inclined to feel that they're actually making a difference, because the way politics is right now, one person is always going to be making a whole entire another side upset for me. So it's no balance. It's black or white. And I really don't think politics need to be like that. I feel like parties like the Green Party and independent people like that should be taken more seriously. I feel like people see politics as black and white when it can be a gray line somewhere.
So my first question is, are you a registered voter?
I am not.
Do you plan on registering before the election?
Yes.
Okay. Do you plan on voting in this upcoming election? Why or why not?
I plan on it, but I have to do a lot more research before I do. I think it is an important election too, just because of how many people are split.
So my first question is, are you a registered voter?
I'm not.
Okay. So do you plan on voting and or do you plan on registering to vote before the election?
I plan on registering to vote soon, and hopefully I'll do it in time so I can vote for the election.
And why do you want to vote in the election?
Just so, my opinion is out there, and I feel like I'm doing something.
Are you a registered voter?
I'm not.
Are you planning on registering before the election?
Yes.
Do you plan on voting in the election in about a month? Why or why not?
I think I will, just because this seems to be a really important one. The country's really divided right now, whether it's Kamala or Trump. So I think the vote really does matter this election, more than anything.
So my first question is, are you a registered voter?
I am.
Do you plan on voting in the election in about a month? Or why not?
Yeah, probably. I don't see any reason not to.
Okay, and how does the national election impact your decisions that you'll make at the local level elections?
I mean, being completely honest, I don't really vote locally. I just vote for like the main election every 4 years.
Honestly, I just need to do more research. I'm just not sure. It's something obviously that I want to know more about that I'll have to look into a lot more.
Honestly, I don't really associate the two together. Usually, when it's more local, I feel like my voice matters more. It's where I live, so I find I get to know the person better of who I'm actually voting for. So I don't really correlate the two together. I see it as two different things.
How do you believe the national election will impact your community at a local level?
I think it'll affect people individually. Like who wins or who loses will affect each person.
At a local level, I'm going to be honest, I don't think it'll affect us too much personally here where we are. I mean, we live in New York, which is like a pretty Democrat-run state. I don't think, regardless of who wins, much will change. But, I mean, you never know. If there's any, sweeping changes, it could always affect us here. But I couldn't say personally what would affect us.
How do you believe the national election will impact your community at a local level?
Oh, I'm sure it will in some way. I mean, in New York's mainly Democratic? Especially this election. No matter who wins, I feel like we're not going to, stop liking who we wanted to vote for and start liking the other person more. I feel like it wouldn't impact too much on local elections.
What issues would a politician have to address for you to want to vote for them?
Definitely women's rights and abortion.
Inflation, gas prices have always been going up recently, up and down. I like to see a lot of retail goods to go down in price a lot. I would like to just stay kind of constant, not be at such an increase or decrease all the time.
I'll be honest, I'm not really sure. I mean, like I said, I'm more of a higher level stuff. Local levels, I'm not too familiar with our local problems. I'm just more familiar with the United States as a whole. So for example, when I look at a candidate for the main election, I'm looking at their economic policies, if they're going to help poor people out, if they're going to be giving more trans care, things like that nature. You know what I mean? Just being overall more accepting of people.
Environment, mainly the area around it. I want to like where I'm living. I want it to look decent. That's usually what I look for.
That was a compilation of on-the-street interviews conducted by 89.1 The Point on the campus of SUNY Brockport. For more, you can check out our Spotify or Instagram at 891 The Point.
Welcome back to the election coverage here on 89.1 The Point. So we've got some numbers from the 7 p.m. voting turnout reports from the city of Rochester and some of the other towns around the area. Right now, the city's got about 49.7% of the voters counted already. We're not seeing anything over 70% reported in any of the local cities like Clarkson, East Rochester, Henrietta, all that stuff. They're all down around 72. Highest is 74 in Rush, which is very interesting because they have a ballot initiative, Proposition 2, going out about just basically a land lease. There's not much there. But yeah, local turnouts, of course, polling ends at 9, so that's when we're going to start getting all of our stuff in. But there is a lot of stuff happening nationally, if you want to.
West Virginia has 5 electorates. They called for Trump already. Pennsylvania is closing at 8. Additionally, we also have other information from other states, such as the 7 o'clock poll closings in Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. I would also like to talk a little bit more about West Virginia in particular right now. Being that Joe Manchin is retiring, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the Democrats pertaining to the U.S. Senate. 34 seats are up for election in 2024, including a special election in Nebraska. Currently, the Senate has 51 Democrats, including 4 independents who lean Democratic, and 49 Republicans. The key point of perspective, Republicans can retake control with a net gain of 2 seats or a Trump victory with a net gain of at least 1 seat. Again, Manchin is retiring, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for the Democrats, to say the least.
Yeah, Joe Manchin's an interesting case, especially because he didn't always caucus with the Democrats. It's interesting to see how that'll play out if a Democratic challenger can do well there, or if they will definitely lean into the Republican roots. Again, it got called there, 5 electoral votes for Donald Trump, which was expected, so no big shockers of yet. Of course, we're all waiting for 8 o'clock when Pennsylvania closes.
Absolutely. So things are going to get very interesting as we go. I mean, if you look at the time right now, wherever you are, the listener, it's already 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, of course. So things are going to be shaken up around here. This is all we got here from the host desk here in the studio, and we are going to be taking it down to the Democratic Hotel. Victor Menendez is going to be leading the information. Thank you.
So people are getting excited, even though a couple of states have just been called for Donald Trump. It's still very early in the night. We have a long ways to go. We will have an interview with Jamie Romeo at the bottom of the hour at about 8:50 or 8:55. She is the county clerk here. Like I said, they have just opened the doors to the general public. People are filing in. Jamie Romeo is here. We will have interviews with her and a few other politicians if we can. New York State polls are closing in less than an hour. It's just a lot of excitement here at the Democrat Hotel. We think that it should be a really exciting night. As I said, we will have an interview with County Clerk Jamie Romeo, and that's about it from here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the studio. We're going to be taking it down to the Republican Center here. Thank you.
We are live here at the Republican Party, where we're seeing some more people walk in. We're here at the Italian Community Center in Rochester. Dominic, you said you would talk to someone?
Just some people kind of walking around. I saw somebody bought on pizza a second ago. I'm looking forward to that. Looks like people are starting to show up, and it's starting to shape up here. A lot of camel crews. I count a good 5 or 6 camels covering the election tonight. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's quite a few people here as far as media goes. We've got some other people that we know. Like I've met someone here who I went to school with last year, and we're seeing some more people walk in the door. It looks like a lot of supporters. Doesn't look like too many candidates have showed up yet. But
no,
who was it that
yet.
you said you saw?
I did see a second ago Greg Sadwick, who's running for the Republican position of the United States Congress. He did step in a little while ago. Looks like he stepped back out. I think he'll be showing in and out throughout the night.
Yeah, I'm sure candidates will be in and out throughout the night, upstairs, downstairs, everywhere in between. But that's pretty much all that's happening here right now. We will provide you more updates here and on our social media on TikTok and Instagram at 891thepoint, and send it right back to you guys in the studio.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Inside the Studio here for this 2024 election coverage. And as a further ado, Robbie, give us some information. Just came up.
Yep, so we got some updates of polling results today. For Trump, Indiana has gone to Trump. That has 11 electoral votes. Kentucky got called, 8. West Virginia with 4. South Carolina with 9. Florida with 30. Has been finally finished reporting. Alabama with 9. Mississippi with 6. Tennessee with 11. And Oklahoma with 7. Again, none of those shockers. None of the big swing states have been called yet. For Harris, she's won Vermont with 3, Massachusetts for 11, Rhode Island with 4, Connecticut with 7, Maryland with 10, which are all, again, expect electoral votes that they were both planning to win. So this is no real big shakeup. We do have some information, though, right now. Texas is swinging for Harris. Of course, that's only with Austin and Dallas reporting, so, of course, that's not too shocking. Of course, when the rest of the state will get in there, I'm expecting to see a big old swing. But there is all red looking to challenge Cruz this year for his Senate seat. Another thing that has been reported is that Joe Manchin, his seat went to another person. It was not a Democrat. The Republicans have won Kentucky Senate seat. This is the only Senate seat that the Democrats are allowed to lose this year if they would like to regain majority in the Senate. So, if anything happens, it's not looking too good. Of course, with a Harris win, that will change. They can lose another seat because Tim Walz will then be the president of the Senate, just like how Kamala Harris is the president of the Senate now. But if they lose more than those two, it doesn't matter.
All right, thank you, Robbie. And okay, now we talked about the Senate. Let's talk about the U.S. House of Representatives as well. 2024 will obviously be determined by fewer races than the past 2 decades, actually. Only 10% of races are competitive this year for the House. Due to redistricting, this is a smaller battlefield, everyone, which has reduced the number of seats in play in recent years. Democrats have a financial edge because of initial outraising compared to the GOP. New York and California are not competitive in the presidential race, but have several toss-up seats in the House. That's all I got right now, that cusp of information. We'll be sure to talk more about Proposition 1 as we come back inside the studio later on, and as all the information elsewhere comes on in. And we'll also be sure to talk about the local towns and so on and so forth. This is all we got right now for this 2024 election coverage inside the studio. I'm Hunter Wright, here with Robbie Merrill. Thank you.
Tonight on Election Updates, we have Greg Sadwick. Greg is running for the 25th Congressional District of the Congress. So, Greg, how are you tonight?
Good, Maura. I'm doing great. It's great to be back here on Brockport's campus.
Yeah, my first question going into this interview is going to be, why did you decide to run for Congress?
Because of you, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because of you and your generation. Okay, so my granddaughter was born two months ago. By the way, to my son, who's a Brockport graduate as well. But my first granddaughter was born 2 months ago. And I'm not giving her the same country that my grandparents gave me. My grandparents were from the greatest generation. My grandfather served in World War II, and they built America and made it this incredible place that half the globe wants to come flock to. But that's not where we are today. And that's not what I'm going to be giving my granddaughter. So it's trying to change the trajectory that the country's currently on.
So what is your favorite part about Rochester?
Rochester's got a lot of great parts. Okay, so Rochester is, autumn's coming up. I love autumn. Autumn's fabulous. But we got the Finger Lakes in the summer. We got Lake Ontario in the summer. We get snow if we want to go skiing. Yeah. We're close to other good cities. We did a day trip. I'm an Eagles fan. We did a day trip to Philadelphia, leaving at 6 in the morning, caught an Eagles game, and made it back home by midnight. There's so much within a 6-hour radius that Rochester's a wonderful place.
So, in your opinion, what is the biggest issue going on currently in the city of Rochester that you would like to tackle?
I think crime's the biggest issue. It's not necessarily a federal issue, but I would support the state legislatures and back the blue. My opponent actually sat and kneeled in protest against the blue during the defund the police movement, which I thought was pretty horrible. But crime has got to be solved. We got to make it a safe community for everybody, particularly people in the city. Right. You know, I've been in the city. I've met a lot of people, and they're not the ones that want to defund the police. They want the police, and they have great relationships. There's nothing better than going to a city event and you seeing the dynamics between the police and the citizens of the city. Crime has got to be fixed, though.
Yeah. So if granted this position of Congress, how would you balance that position and give and take that you run 2 businesses? How would you balance all of that out?
Okay. So I do have 2 businesses that employ about 100 people. One business, I have an incredible management team that has been trying to obsolete me over the years. Okay, meaning that they're trying to do my job, and they are doing my job, and that's awesome. Yeah. So that company will be fine. The other company is run by my son, the one that graduated from Brockport, and he's doing an incredible job. It's a collision shop. We actually just got certified by Tesla to do their EV work.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty fortunate that teams are in place.
What is something that you agree and disagree with Murray Alley?
What do I agree and disagree with? Let me start with the disagree first, okay?
Yeah.
The disagree is with the SAVE Act, I'll say. The border is out of control. Yeah. And the SAVE Act was a current piece of legislation that he voted no on. The SAVE Act requires IDs in federal elections. Okay, why would we not want that? 80% of America wants that. The rest of the civilized world has that. Yeah. But he voted right down party lines to vote against it. Yeah. So that's one key thing. The border is another thing we're different on. What are we similar on? Wow, that's a great question, Maura. What are we similar on? We're gonna be here a while. I know he's a good person. Okay, yeah. I have nothing bad to say about him. Okay, I've met him. He's a good guy. The problem is he's part of a political system that requires him to vote a certain way. Yeah. But I do believe his intentions are genuine.
Yeah. So we are going to move on to national issues currently. So my first question for you, Greg, would be, what is your position on the economy and inflation right now?
It's a mess. The economy's a mess. And it's a mess because of policy decisions that were enacted by this administration. So I'll break it down to two things. The first one is their assault on petroleum. Okay, we need petroleum. Petroleum goes into the manufacturing process of the goods and services that we produce. Petroleum goes into the transportation of those products to consumers. Okay, when you have an assault on that industry and you you cause them to retract and we're not producing as much, the supply goes down but the demand is still high, prices go up. Okay, that's one aspect. Today, by the way, they've kind of retracted on that. We're actually pumping more oil today than we were 4 years ago. But it took us a while to get here. They initially tapped it down. The other aspect is the policy decisions that are coming out of Washington. Vice President Harris, the current candidate for president, was the deciding vote on two pieces of legislation that pumped in $3.2 trillion in the economy. Okay, one was the an American Rescue Plan, and one was the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, $3.2 trillion. We have more money in the economy now, so the supply of money goes up, but the demand, so demand now goes up for goods, but the supply of those goods doesn't go up, so prices go up. And if I can tack onto that, not only did the supply not go up, but it actually went down. Because remember, the last 3 years, they disincentivized people to go to work during the COVID situation.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what plan should the United States partake in into rebuilding the economy?
We got to get back to fiscal responsibility. Right now, our debt is $35 trillion. And guess who's going to pay for that, Maura?
Yeah.
You, right? Yeah. So we're living on borrowed time, and you're going to have to pay for that. Yeah. So we got to get back to fiscal responsibility. Right now, our tax revenues are about $5 trillion. Our expenses, the budget's about $8 trillion. That's a gap of $3 trillion. Okay, so it's increasing our debt each year by $3 trillion. Right. We are getting that money from China, our biggest adversary. We're then getting that $3 trillion. We're using $1 trillion of that to pay off the service on the debt, which is insane. And then we're also giving to other countries.
Right.
Okay, we're giving to other countries to fund other wars. It just doesn't make sense. We got to get back to taking care of Americans first and fiscal responsibility. And that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for everybody because there's no good answer. But the best answer is going to be honesty, because if we're not being honest, I have a saying that math will catch up with us. You can't cheat math.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is going to happen because math will always win out.
Yeah. And where do you see the economy in a year from now?
That depends on the decisions we make on November 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, the economy is slowing down. I mean, I talked to other businesses. Things are starting to slow down. People are a little concerned about, money's running out too, the money they pumped in the economy. So people are kind of holding back. And if Kamala Harris is elected, I think we're going to continue on a trajectory that's not going to be good for America. If not, I would suggest that on November 6th, if Donald Trump's elected, you'll see an immediate bump in the economy, and people will have faith. I don't think he did very good in the election, in the debate. I think he was kind of weak and she came off well. But pollsters said it was about the economy that people actually, independents actually leaned towards Trump during that debate because they have more faith in him in the economy. And I think that's going to show when he wins.
Okay, so my next question for you is, what is your position on immigration today?
Immigration built America. Okay, we're all descendants of an immigrant in some way or another. Right now, our birth rate is 1.6. We need 2.1 to grow the economy. Okay, that 0.5 gap is not going to be filled by producing new babies. We just can't do that quick enough.
Yeah.
It's going to come from immigration. So when they say Republicans are against immigration, that's just a flat-out lie. Right. We need immigration. I'm a business owner. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been struggling for labor. We need people. Okay, but we got to have people come in here that are vetted.
Yeah.
Okay. My last name is Sadwick. That's not my original last name. My ancestors came through Ellis Island because there was a process. They got shots. They got checked. They had to have a sponsor here. And they couldn't spell our last name, so that's the name they gave us. Okay, there was a process. Now there's no process. People can just swim across. Right now we're getting drugs smuggled in the country. We lose 100,000 lives a year. We're getting Venezuelan gangs coming over. We're getting the cartels coming over. Child trafficking. I don't know if you remember 6-7 years ago when Donald Trump had the cages that Obama built, that they were detaining people in. They were splitting up the children. AOC, Chuck Schumer, they were in tears. In tears. Look what we're doing. We're the tears today. Yeah. We're the tears today. We've lost 300,000 children, and no one is saying a thing about it. Yeah. Okay, that's a big problem. There's another thing people aren't talking about. If all the people, let's say, from Guatemala, our young men are coming up here, what's happening to their economy down there?
Right.
We're doing their economies a disservice because there's just a huge sucking sound of working, able-bodied men coming up here, and their economies are now having problems. No one's talking about that either. So it's a big problem that we created as a country by the policies of this administration.
Yeah, for sure. My next question for you is, what is your position about the gas and oil production industry today?
So we are a petroleum-based economy, okay? If we cut back and stopped using oil today, it's not going to have that big of an impact when our adversaries and other economies and the Chinese economy are still using it. Okay, so we just can't be all noble and say we're not going to do it when everyone else is doing it. So we got to be smart about it. We should be looking towards a renewable future, but the market should be driving that, not the government. I've often said I'm a little skeptical sometimes about some of the climate arguments. I don't know if you're from around here, but the Finger Lakes were carved out by the glaciers that were once here. Okay, so the glaciers were down the PA border 10,000 years ago or so. The globe heated up and those glaciers receded, carving the Finger Lakes out. Well, there were no carbon belching factories back then.
Right.
Okay, the Earth has a natural cycle, and I think I'm a little older than you, probably a little older than you, and you know, I've lived through the ozone hole. You know that the Earth's going to burn up. I've learned that the polar ice caps are going to melt, and we're going to flood us all out. That didn't happen. You know, there's always we're going to run out of oil. We're going to run out of oil in 20 years. That didn't happen. I mean, there's always something. So I'm a little skeptical about what comes out of Washington.
So how do you think conflicts around the world right now, including Russia, Ukraine, Israel, how do you think all of those wars currently are going to affect our country in the next coming years?
It's already affecting them, and it's affecting them because people think that our leadership is weak right now. Okay, but let's look at how we got those wars. When we tapped down we had the assault on the oil industry, Iran was selling 300,000 barrels a day. We lifted the embargo. Now they're selling 3 million a day. Yeah. That made them a wealthy country. Now they have the funds to supply all their proxies, which then made the attack. Yeah. Okay, so we actually caused that. We shut down. We're not selling as much to our allies in Europe. Okay, so now Russia is. Now Russia's getting wealthy, and now they march into Ukraine. Okay, so we got to look at why we got where we're at. Okay, but now that we're here, you know, Israel is our greatest ally in that part of the world. We do need to support them. But right now, this administration is signaling support, not support, support, not support. They need to pick a side and go with it, which I think is support. In Ukraine, okay, if you look at the spectrum of options, it's either all in or all out.
Yeah.
We're not going to get all out. We're not going to do that.
Right.
But we're not going to go all in because that's going to be World War III.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's in the middle? One option in the middle is we keep sending our money over there, our taxpayer dollars, and we keep losing Ukrainian lives. Yeah. I personally don't think that's acceptable for anybody. So what needs to happen is the president needs to pick up the phone, which he hasn't done in over a year and a half, and talk to Putin and try to settle this thing.
Yeah.
We need strong leadership in the White House if we're going to resolve either of those issues.
Yeah. So what are some things that our country should partake in to keep world peace?
Well, again, going back to strong leadership, that's number one. We need to be a leader, okay? We're not being a leader. I don't know if you remember when the Chinese spy balloon floated across America and went over our military bases, and then as it drifted off, we then decided to shoot it down. That shows the world that we're weak. I mean, we would never, no president before this current one would ever allow that. Obama would have shot it down. Clinton would have shot it down. They all would have shot it down. So that's unacceptable. You look at our departure from Afghanistan, which was a political move. He wanted to be out so that we could be out by the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And look at the people we hurt there. Right. I don't remember the plane, people trying to jump on the wheels as the planes are leaving. Yeah. Who exits a country and takes the military out first and leaves our civilians there to leave after the fact? Yeah. Who would do that? It's just crazy. So we need strong leadership in the White House that can look Xi Jinping in the eye and not giggle or cackle.
Right. So out of all these national issues that we just talked about, which one is most important to you?
Which one I think is the biggest relevance is China. Okay, I mean, China has made it clear that they want to replace the U.S. dollar as the world's currency. And if that happens, that could be catastrophic. China has made it clear they want to replace us as the world's superpower. Yeah. China has made it clear through their actions as well. They're encircling Taiwan. They plan on attacking Taiwan. They've been open about it. And it's going to happen in the next couple of years. Okay, if they get Taiwan, which makes our chips, that's a big deal. Yeah. Okay, China's Navy has surpassed ours. China's stealing our intelligence. I remember Barack Obama. This is incredible. Barack Obama said, "I told China not to do that anymore." It's like, what are you talking about? You need to be a little more forceful than that. But China is a huge concern. They've sent military-age men across our border that we have no idea who's here. You don't think they're willing to do something to undermine America and our infrastructure? We should all. The FBI director said, Christopher Wray, said it's not a matter of if something happens, it's a matter of when. That's from the FBI director. That should send a shiver down everybody's spine. Yeah. That's my biggest concern.
What do you think is the strength of the American people today?
The American people are resilient, okay? And we're resourceful when we're allowed to be, okay? I do think we've enabled some segments of our population to not be strong and resilient because we create all these safety nets. But America has the ability to be resilient and to be leaders. And I think that if the government gets out of the way and lets business do what it has to do to grow this economy and sticks to its purpose, which is protecting its citizens, representing us in foreign engagements, handling interstate squabbles, that's what a small government, a federal government, is supposed to be doing.
To conclude this interview, why do you think it's important for the younger generation to vote, and why do you think people should vote for you?
So it's critical that the younger generation votes, okay? As mentioned, I got 2 businesses. I'm doing fine. I can kick my feet up and coast in retirement. I'm going to be fine. Yeah. Okay. I really don't need the hassles of going to Washington, which is somewhat dysfunctional. But I'm doing it because I believe in your generation. Your generation needs something better. Campaigning, I've gone so many places in the city and in the county, and there's some wonderful people, and we're not doing what we need to do for them. So that's the main reason I'm running, is to make sure that we're handing your generation a better America, or at least as good as the America that I got handed to me. Okay, why am I the best candidate? Because I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. Okay, people get their places in government because they just climb this ladder by making backroom deals and having side deals. I'm from outside the system. I've been in business. I've ran businesses. I've owned businesses, and I'm coming in from outside, which means that I'm not accountable to anybody but the voters. Yeah. Okay, and that's critical. Right now, Washington votes down party lines. They vote right, as I mentioned earlier, the SAVE Act. That was right down party lines. We got to stop putting party before people, and that's why I am a candidate that's worthy of this office. I'll also share that my campaign manager is a former Democrat city councilman. Okay, so I'm trying to demonstrate that the ground level, day one, it's working together, because we can't always have it our way. Yeah. We do got to meet America where America's at and help bring America to a better place, and we've got to do that together.
Okay, so this concludes our interview for our election update tonight. Thank you, Greg, for meeting with us tonight.
Thank you, Mark.
And this was our election update.
You're about to hear a compilation of on-the-street interviews that 89.1 The Point conducted on the campus of SUNY Brockport. Students were asked about their opinions surrounding the election.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Do you plan on voting in the upcoming election? Why or why not?
Yes. I actually just went and picked up my absentee ballots.
Why is it that you plan on voting?
Because I think it's important, even for younger people to vote. I think even your little voice means more than not voting.
I do plan on voting because I feel like my vote does matter.
I do plan on voting because, I think that's, it's a right you only get to exercise once every 4 years for the president. There is other voting stuff, but biggest vote every 4 years, and this will be my first time, so yeah, why not?
Okay, do you believe that the national election will affect your community at a local level? Why or why not?
I don't think at first, but I think eventually it will cause, I think actually right after election, I think it will cause a lot of negative feedback, no matter who wins, and I think it will just cause awkwardness.
Do you believe that the national election will affect your community at the local level? Why or why not?
I certainly would say the local level, but I would say a much more broader scale, yes. Because, really, if you think about it, this country is already so divided enough as is that really the slight change could bring a whole bunch of local stuff.
Most likely will. I'm probably not sure how, but I don't know.
Yeah, because we live in a diverse population, and so I think it'll affect the lives of a lot of people, including my own.
I don't think so. I feel like everyone where I'm from, at least, is pretty level-headed, and we all have the same political views. I feel like you go outside more in the bigger cities, everyone's kind of clashing a bit.
Okay, and what issues would a local candidate, so state, county, town, city, what would they have to address for you to want to vote for them?
I guess, the situation with the bachelor's degree now and, how it really isn't being used as well as it used to be.
Honestly, quality of person. If you're a good person and I see you helping out the community, whoever's best for the people.
Right now I'm concerned, or the cost of living, what it means when I get out of college, how long it's going to take to pay back all my loans, knowing what's actually going to help regular U.S. citizens.
It depends on what exactly they're bringing and what exactly how they say it. Because really while it's all about the promises, it's all about how they say it. If they frame it in a way that almost makes it sound like it's going to benefit them, then I'm not doing it.
I think they would have to address things like homelessness, drug addiction, things in that kind of area.
That was a compilation of on-the-street interviews conducted by 89.1 The Point on the campus of SUNY Brockport. For more election coverage, you can check out our Spotify or our Instagram at 891 The Point.
Welcome back to the 2024 election coverage here on 89.1 The Point. I am Hunter Wright, and I'm also here with our co-host.
Thank you all for joining us again tonight. I'm Robert Merrill.
Yes, and so I actually want to begin discussing this right now. Apparently this came in not long ago, that the Pennsylvania Governor, Josh Shapiro, said that there had been multiple bomb threats that were called in to polling locations across the state, of course, of Pennsylvania. And this is via AP News here. But said, so far, there is no credible threat. Just wanted to let you know that thus far. And additionally, I want to also update you all on the fact that we have polls that close at 9 p.m. Those states are Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. A lot of stuff coming in. And we'll take it over to Robbie on the other information.
Yep, so New York closes at 9, so they closed 4 minutes ago. So they should be bringing you some updates really quick. Once the state updates their website, we'll get you all the information as it happens. But around the country, Democrat Josh Stein has been elected to governor of New York, beating former Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who was a self-described black Nazi. So that's a big shakeup for North Carolina, where the GOP's had control for a while. Jim Justice has been elected to the U.S. Senate from West Virginia. He took over Joe Manchin's seat, which we previously talked about before. And that's really all the big updates right now. But, Hunter, you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about Proposition 1. And so, being that it's basically over with, I'll just clarify this one last time. That, of course, according to Proposition 1 in New York State, New York voters will decide whether to amend the state constitution to include abortion and LGBTQ rights, along with protections against discrimination based on reproductive health care, sexual orientation, national origin, and age. The context: amid nationwide restrictions on these rights, the outcome of this ballot measure could reflect New York's stance on a set of precedent. So, there we have it on that. And additionally, one last thing I wanted to also mention was that less than half of voters are very confident about ballot counts. Approximately, according to AP News, about 4 in 10 voters said that they were very confident that their ballots would be accurately counted nationwide. Very interesting. An expansive survey of more than 115,000 voters in the United States. So, that is that. All right, so that, you have anything else, Robbie?
Yeah, I just wanted to update everyone. According to the Time, Florida voters have rejected an abortion rights amendment, and they will continue with their 6-week ban. Florida's constitutional amendments require 60% vote thresholds, and they reached 57.8, so they did not meet the 60% threshold.
Wow.
So that amendment did not pass in Florida. So we'll see if a similar thing passes here in New York.
I see. And that is all we have right now at this time. We're going to be taking it down to the next location here on 89.1 The Point, the Republican location.
We are at the Republican Party. Dominic, tell me, what are you seeing right here, right now?
Down here at the Italian Community Center here in Rochester, New York, it's definitely picking up speed. There's lots of people coming in, including a couple of politicians. Joe and I had a pleasure just a little while ago to meet Marcus Williams. He's running for the 137th Division of the State Assembly here in New York. And we had a chance to ask him a couple questions, get a couple of answers. I'm sure the interview will be out later on this evening, probably within the hour.
I think it's going to be playing later in the hour here, so make sure that everybody stays tuned because you don't want to miss. It was a great interview.
It was a great interview.
He was very excited to talk about.
He was. He had a lot to say.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you know, we've seen some other politicians here. We've seen Sadwick. He's running for Congress. And he's from Rochester. That's why he's here, not in Washington. And I mean, there's a whole lot of people here. We're getting a lot of good photos. So tune in on our Instagram and our website, 891thepoint.com and 891thepoint on Instagram, so you can see just how packed it is in here, as I'm sure you can hear through the microphones.
Absolutely. There's definitely energy to the room as we wait incoming election results. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that pretty much does it for us for now. Make sure that you stay tuned. Thank you, guys, and back to you in the studio.
Hello and welcome back after the break. I am Hunter Wright, your host here on this 89.1 The Point election coverage. We're going to be taking it down to the Democratic Center as we speak. Here we go.
Right now, where the room is a little more packed, there's a lot more heads inside right now as a few candidates have started to flow in. There's music playing. The polls have just closed here in New York State, so expect to see some results start pouring in on who has come out on top of these elections. We have 2 interviews to look at on our Instagram. We have the incumbent for a member of Assembly of the 135th District, Jens Lunsford, and we also have Jamie L. Romeo running for county clerk. You could check that out on our Instagram at 891thepoint. 891thepoint on Instagram. But I'm Lucas Vargas with 89.1 The Point, and, you know, we're still only getting started here. The vibes are starting to pick up. There's a lot more heads, like I said, but don't go anywhere. Stay here as races will start to get close, as that'll do it for us here live at the Hyatt Hotel with the Monroe County Democrats for 89.1 The Point. Now let's take it back to the studio.
Welcome back here at the studio at 89.1 The Point. I'm here with Hunter Wright talking about the election. I just wanted to talk about how the weather, obviously everyone who stepped outside today noticed that it is gorgeous out, but what political implications does that have? Because somehow everything's political, even the weather. And this isn't about climate change, so. But with better weather will increase voter turnout. That's just like a thing seen across the board. So we're looking at probably an increased, especially in upstate New York, turnout for the Democrats. Because when more people turn out, the Democrats tend to do better. But overall, that could change if it's nicer here. But, Hunter, if you wanted to talk, I know you had some things about Prop 1.
I wanted to also mention a couple. Yes, well, I mean, obviously it's very beautiful out, and so obviously getting a lot of people out there. I mean, it's not going to be 43 degrees outside with wind, so it's a nice time of year to get everyone out there. But in New York State, this just is in that the Proposition 1 is up 2/3 to the 1/3. Right now, it's looking pretty good. And additionally, in New York State itself, Kamala Harris is for New York. Okay, so she won in New York, and additionally, that in Wyoming and both of the Dakotas, that they are for Trump. That's all I have right now on that piece of information.
Yeah, so that's all pretty expected. I think nobody
Definitely.
was really questioning any of that happening. So
Definitely. It's
no big shakeups from tonight, but we should be getting all the local reporting in quite soon. So we'll update you as soon as that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for choosing 89.1 for your election night coverage.
Absolutely. And all right, we're going to be taking it to a break, and we will have much to hear as this hour progresses, as everything ramps up. Here on 89.1 The Point.
I'm Ryan Hermanak, and I'm a student journalist representing 89.1 The Point and Talent TV for your 2024 election coverage. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Josh Jensen, who is running for re-election for New York State Assembly, representing District 134. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that covers certain areas of Greece, Ogden, Parma, close areas here to SUNY Brockport, where many students may end up living post-graduation should they choose to stay in the Rochester area. Josh, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm excited to get to talk to you.
Yeah, Ryan, my pleasure. And really looking forward to the opportunity to talking not just to you, but to the larger SUNY Brockport community.
And I think it's something that's greatly appreciated, especially because there's a lot of hot-button social issues during this time that I think our community would really greatly appreciate hearing your perspective on.
Yeah, of course.
First thing that I have for you here, just kind of get the conversation started. Why do you currently choose to represent District 134? What is significant about that, and why do you want to continue to do so?
Yeah, so I've been a lifelong resident of the 134th District. I've lived there my entire life. I'm raising my family there, my twins, my 6-year-old twins. And it's a place that I've loved and has made me who I am. And I come from a family of public service. On both sides of my family, they were involved in the volunteer fire service. And I knew very early in my adulthood that was not the direction of service that I wanted to pursue. But when I was in college at Niagara University, I had the opportunity to intern for Senator Joe Robach in his office in Greece. And I got to see firsthand how important it was for our community to have a voice representing them in government that's doing it not for partisan reasons, but because they honestly want to serve as the voice. And so when I look at the way I was raised, the values that I have, and the values that our community has, having the opportunity to represent not just the place where I've called home for 35 years, but also my neighbors. And it's truly an honor to be able to go to Albany, go to our state capitol, and stand up for 134,000 people and serve as their voice in government and try to make their lives and the lives of the 20 million people who live in New York State better and stronger for the future.
Gotcha. So, you have a very, strong background in, talking to people and getting to connect with people. And I think that's, shown through your communications background as well, before joining the Assembly. Talk a little bit about how that's, impacted the role that you're in now in communicating with lawmakers in order to, bring to attention the issues that are most important to the people you serve.
Yeah, certainly the things that we take up in state government can sometimes be very complicated. And, people aren't always going to reach out to their elected officials on every issue that they maybe see on the news or read in the paper or see on social media. They may only reach out when it's something that directly impacts their life, their livelihood. And so having a good communicator in office, whether it's me or anyone else, being able to be articulate and share, like, this is what this piece of policy would do, this is what this law does, and this is how it would affect us, both on a personal level, micro level, and a macro level, is important because I don't go to Albany to represent my views. I go to Albany to represent the majority of the people that I represent, and sometimes that's an ever-evolving viewpoint. And so being able to have conversations with my constituents, be out in the community, not just sit, behind a desk all day, is important, because if I'm not hearing from people, if I'm not talking to people, then I'm not having a good idea of really what the people I represent want. And, I feel like if you're going to be a public servant, you have to be willing and able to have a dialogue and be able to understand where people are coming from and have them understand where you're coming from.
Gotcha. So community engagement sounds like a big part of, your platform and, everything that you stand for. Talk a little bit about, how you do that. I'm sure campaigning is a big part of that, but, what exactly does it look like going out into the community? Yeah,
so I may be rare. In my political background, I've been elected twice to the state assembly, so finishing my fourth year. I was on the Greecetown board for 3 years before that, but the way I've always looked at it is, if you're doing your job as an elected official, you're never really going from serving to campaigning and campaigning to serving, because you should always be out there. You should always be a presence. And for me, that means being in my office every day. It means even, a lot of elected officials may not answer the phone at the office, but, the phone calls, I have great staff, but I'll pick up and answer the phone. I'll respond to emails. I'll go to a ribbon cutting or, even talk to parents at my kid's soccer game. Get stopped at the fish counter at Wegmans, because people need to be seen that elected officials aren't on a mountaintop. We're not greater than anyone else, and we're just citizens who this is what we put our hands up to serve. And people need to know that we're accessible, because they don't want to have an elected elite representing them. At least I don't believe they do. They want to have people from the community who are going to look out for their interests, fight for them, and really be a cheerleader for the community. And that's why, for me, an advantage of being 6'1", red hair, and chubby is I am recognizable when I go to Wegmans or anywhere else in town. So, and I'm always happy when people stop me and want to share something. And I even tell people, listen, if you see me on the news or you see me, put something on Facebook that you think is dumb, call me and tell me. Like, I want to hear the good things, but I also want to hear the bad things, because that's the only way that I can continue to evolve my positions on legislation that comes before us.
Gotcha. So, talking about, engaging with the community and them bringing to attention some of the issues that are, most important to them, and as well, some of the things that are going great in the community. Talk a little bit about what your proudest accomplishments have been representing the 134th District during your time with the State Assembly.
Yeah, I think, it's tough for a Republican member of the New York State Assembly to list off a bunch of accomplishments, just because of the nature of our government is that the Democratic majority are going to collect the lion's share of legislation. Anything with statewide impact is going to get passed by a Democrat. So I've been very happy that I have had some pieces of legislation pass, but they've been hyper-local. So I think one of the proudest legislative accomplishments was passing 3 different bills to honor and dedicate portions of New York State Highway after fallen heroes. So in the town of Greece, we dedicated a portion of Ladder Road after Gary Bykirk, who's a Medal of Honor recipient, which is the highest honor anybody can receive in America. A stretch of Union Street in Spencerport after Robert Fowler, who was a firefighter who died in the line of duty, and Jason Hasenhauer in town of Parma, village of Hilton, who was a Hilton graduate who was killed in action in the Middle East. And so certainly not just doing it for their families, but also to show our community the importance of recognizing those who are willing to sacrifice themselves for something larger. On a more macro scale, for me, one of the most important things just in general is how I'm viewed by not just my constituents, but my colleagues. Because as a minority party member, the most precious resource I have is my voice. And so I think I'm very lucky that when I stand up and debate a bill or raise a point on the floor of the Assembly, that my colleagues listen. And they don't listen just because I'm their fellow party member or they think I'm going to take a shot at somebody. It's because I like to think that they honestly value my position and my viewpoint, even if they disagree with it. And being the ranking minority member, which is the senior Republican on the Assembly Health Committee, has allowed me to play a leading role in health policy statewide. And often I'm the one tasked with debating a lot of those bills when they come before the Assembly. And I want to have the respect of all my colleagues that when I stand up and I use that voice, that my colleagues want to hear what I say, even if they don't agree with it.
So in terms of, using your voice and, working to get legislation passed that, you're so strongly advocating for, what does that legislation look like? What are the social issues that, you take on in your role that you feel passionately about for the community that you represent?
Yeah, I think one of the things that my joke is that this is my tilting at windmills, Don Quixote priority is, being on the health committee, I've seen firsthand the impact and the administration of the state's Medicaid program, which is the health care assistance, the health care coverage for New Yorkers at the lowest poverty levels. And before I got in state office, I had worked at one of upstate New York's largest nursing homes. And so I saw firsthand the struggles that nursing homes, especially that one that had a large population that had Medicaid as their healthcare provider, insurance carrier. And where we are in New York State is that Medicaid, by and large, does not fully fund or reimburse for the cost of care. So we're in a situation where nursing homes maybe only get reimbursed 73 cents on the dollar for the cost of care. Pediatricians can only accept about 30% of their patients as Medicaid payers, because otherwise they're going to struggle to keep the door open. Dentists, same thing. If they have too high of a population, they're going to struggle. And so one of the things that, I haven't accomplished it, I want to work towards it, I'm trying to build consensus, is that we need to really look at our state Medicaid system to make it more efficient, more effective, through right-sizing it and making sure that people are the ones most in need, are the ones at that care level. So that way, in a perfect world, we can more appropriately reimburse the cost of care so that providers are able to treat whoever walks in the door, not necessarily by who's paying the bill.
So in the case now where, you're part of the assembly and, maybe not in that nursing home environment, certainly that's still background, what is some of the feedback that you hear from your constituents about how this lack of coverage is impacting them?
Yeah, I think everybody looks at healthcare as something that's integral to their lives. They may, based on their income level, they may have to be on public assistance through Medicaid, the Essential Plan, Child Health Plus. But some people may not accept or may not take advantage of employer-sponsored plans for health insurance because the premium costs are too high or they're high deductible. And for them, even though they're being offered this sort of insurance, it's still going to be difficult for them out-of-pocket cost. So when we look at our healthcare ecosystem, for me, it's important that we have all the stakeholders at the table. And oftentimes, I feel like we've gotten into trouble with policy when we allow politicians in a vacuum to make decisions. That's what we're there for. We're there to vote on legislation. But sometimes I think the development of these policies, we have to rely more on subject matter experts, the people who are doing the job every day. And so when we look at our healthcare ecosystem, we should have doctors, nurses, hospitals, insurance companies, patients, all at the table to say, how can we make this system we have in New York State work more efficiently, more effectively, and not have to get to a point where we have more and more people calling for a state takeover of healthcare, which would cost between $250 and $350 billion to implement, when our entire state budget is $237 billion. So I think there's a way to do it. I'm very happy that I sponsor legislation that I think would help us get closer to that and get us from 96% coverage to 100% coverage for all New Yorkers. But certainly it takes political will to go down that path.
So in the legislation that you currently support and, as well as kind of the where you are at currently as far as, increasing what that coverage looks like, what do you have any definitive plans of, how you propose to maybe expand on this should you get reelected?
Yeah, so it was very important to me that as we were drafting this legislation a year ago, which it hasn't moved through committee, but it was very important to me that as we were drafting the legislation that it was actually a feasible piece of legislation. And, in the state assembly, there's been over the past few years, 15,000 pieces of legislation that have been introduced. So there's a lot of text out there. But it was important to me that we draft a piece of legislation that, if passed, would do what it says we want to do, and would be a functional governing document. And for me, if the governor, if my majority colleagues say, listen, Josh, this is a great idea, we can't let you pass it, but we're going to steal this part, and we're going to move it separately, that would be music to my ears. Because at the end of the day, it's not important who gets the credit. What's important is that we make good policy for good laws for the betterment of all New Yorkers. And I think that's my view on government. And I think that's the view of a lot of people that I represent and a lot of people in our community.
So with that in mind, I know, a big concern for many people that live in the community is, their tax dollars and making sure that, those aren't increased. And I know that that's a platform that, you mentioned as well, in your campaign. Talk a little bit about balancing that, trying to find the funding to be able to increase Medicaid coverage while also making sure that, taxpayer dollars for your, the community that you represent stay attainable.
There's a lot of people, and I don't begrudge them, that are going to come, would come out and say, because it's easy politically to say, listen, we need to cut taxes. And I understand that. But what I think we need to do as a state is really need to make our tax and spend policies, once again, more efficient and more effective. At $237 billion, we're in the top, I think, 25 worldwide in government spending, and that's without having to pay for a national defense, just New York State. And so what I'd really like to see is every year that we increase oversight by the comptroller, that the legislature has a greater oversight role to review the previous year's funding, to ensure that we're using these taxpayer dollars as appropriately as possible. Since I took office, often in budgets that I voted against, we've increased spending by about $25 billion, right around there. I hope nobody's fact-checking me as I say this, because I'm thinking off the top of my head. And I don't believe that it's realistic that we're going to say, okay, next year we're going to cut it $20 billion, because taxes are the price you pay to live in a civilized society. And it reminds me when I was on the town board in Greece. Greece we have a high tax rate, but we also have a lot of services. And the number one call I would get as a town board member was about snow plowing. And you better believe that when there was 2 inches of snow on the ground, that the town of Greece had plows out there at 4 a.m. And nobody could ever complain that their streets weren't plowed. Maybe not as quickly as they wanted, but that the roads would be clear. But services cost money. And it's, I think, my job and our job as policymakers, as elected officials at the state level, is say, okay, these are the services New Yorkers want. This is the money we have. Is this the best way to meet the needs of our constituencies? Or is there a way that we could do it better? Some things are just going to cost money. That's a reality. But where I think we could do a better job is if we had all legislators at the state level at the table. Right now, it's 3 people in a room. It's the Speaker, the Senate Majority Leader, and the Governor, and they're really negotiating amongst themselves, excluding the minority party. And I think that even if we're not going to be, have a say and be voting against the budget, our constituents still matter just as much as somebody who lives in the Bronx or in Albany or in the city of Buffalo. And so I'd like to have more, not just minority party representation, but rank and file members, and not have it be such a leadership-driven budget, because we're going to hear things not just from our constituents, but our not-for-profit sector, our businesses, our schools. And I think that's important, to have a budget that appropriately respects the dollars of our taxpayers.
So when kind of assessing, what that budget looks like for, making sure that those taxpayer dollars are being spent, in the most efficient way possible, share a little bit of your insight on, what, issues you think or what areas in which taxpayer dollars are being spent maybe, could be lessened, maybe where they could be delegated off to different issues. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, I think in this year's budget, the biggest one and the loudest one that gets attention is $2.4 billion for migrant payments that was sent to New York City to deal with the migrant crisis. And I understand that we have to provide services for the migrant population that's crossed into this country that are here living in our state. because if they're not provided for, that they're going to have to go and get care from maybe non-legal means, or could be taken advantage of by traffickers or criminal elements. However, the concern I have about the state footing the bill for that, to the tune of $2.4 billion, is that it wasn't New York State who allowed it to happen. We're dealing with the failures of the federal government to appropriately police our border and do a better job of screening these people who are crossing into our country, who are becoming migrants or claiming asylum, and then they're being shipped up to states like New York, to places like New York City, and then dispersed because of the federal government's failure. So that $2.4 billion, the responsibility for the health care, I don't think should be the state's responsibility. I think it should be the responsibility of the federal government.
So is that, a platform that, you're certainly, voicing on the assembly floor and, voicing to your constituents?
Yeah,
that,
Yeah, so I certainly share that when people ask. I don't know if I said it when we debated the budget. We certainly had a lot of my colleagues chose to debate that portion of the budget. In the budget, there is a health component of the budget. So I took the lion's share of the debate on that topic. And we do like to tend to allow the subject matter experts within our conference, our ranking members, to lead the debate. But certainly I'm not shy about expressing that viewpoint, because that's the viewpoint that I'm receiving from the people that I represent.
Gotcha. So, kind of going back to, the different social issues and obviously representing, the voice of the people that come to you with their concerns, I want to kind of pivot to, law enforcement. Yeah. And I know that that's something that, you're a big advocate for, and that's something that's a big part of your campaign. Talk a little bit about why that is.
Yeah, so certainly, I represent a more often than not suburban district, and people want to move and need to move across our community, whether it's from Ogden to Greece to the city, or to the east side, and people want to feel safe as they move about our community. And so when citizens see on the news or on social media that there was a shooting, that car thefts, burglaries, when they see a crime as the lead story most nights on the news, that impacts their viewpoint about what's happening in the community. And so while violent crime numbers may have decreased from that record high of a few years ago, they're still relatively high. And if people don't, my big thing is, hearing from my colleagues, are like, well, look at the data, and data's great. Don't get me wrong. But if people don't feel safe, I believe they're not safe, because the feeling they have is going to impact how they live their lives. And so I believe that when we look at public safety, we have to take more steps to not just bring down crime levels, but make sure that people are feeling safe to move about our community, and do it freely without that threat, whether it's real or perceived, that they could be the victim of violence, because that's going to impact how they live.
This is Sharvani Regmi from 89.1 The Point, and here I have with me Jen Lunsford, who's running for the member of the Assembly from the 135th District, and she's running for her third term as a member of the Assembly. Jen, why are you motivated to run again for the member of the Assembly, and why do you think you can make an impact in the community?
So there's still so much more work to do. As much as, we've made a lot of progress on a lot of the things we ran for office for originally, making sure that we drove down the cost of childcare, making sure that our nursing homes were getting the funding that they need, fully funding foundation aid. As we look to next year, we know that some of that progress is getting eroded, and we need to fight to make sure that we maintain the progress that we've had so far, and also make the gains we need to make some of these places whole. Nursing homes in particular, we still have 900 beds closed in Monroe County, and that's affecting not only seniors who need care, but there's a backlog in our hospitals that they can't get through.
And what kind of issues locally as well as state level that you are going to prioritize if you are reelected again as a member of the Assembly?
So healthcare is huge, healthcare access, particularly for our seniors and people with developmental disabilities. We have a tremendous housing shortage when it comes to people with IDD. So we're working with local partners who are trying to find creative solutions to get around some of the limitations that we have through OPWDD. That's a big issue in my district, but also looking into next year, while we fully funded foundation aid, which is the way we fund our schools at the state level, we see some erosion in the way the formula is being looked at. So we need to make sure that our schools stay level, if not gain, over next year. I know that's a huge issue for people in my district.
And how do you and your team are going to maintain the communication with the local community here and try to pay attention to their issues and try to address it in a state level?
So one of the things we really pride ourselves on is we have 4 town halls a year. That was a campaign promise I made when I ran in 2020, and it's one that I have kept. So in addition to non-subject specific town halls where you can just come and ask me about anything, we also have a lot of subject specific forums. We do a lot of community outreach. I go and meet with groups, particularly the Highlands at Pittsford has invited me several times to talk to groups there about organic waste diversion and recycling. They're really into environmental issues, and as the only local member on the Environmental Conservation Committee, that's huge for me. So just continuously being in the community and making sure that people know what I do so they know when to call me.
And for you personally, you could have run for any other position, but you decided to go for the position again as your 3rd term. So why does being an assembly member matter to you, and what motivates you to go represent New York, Monroe County in New York State Assembly?
The assembly can have so much impact, and the group of people that I represent, it's about 134,000. That's the perfect amount of people. I can still be very present. I can make individual constituent calls. I don't have to spend 2/3 of my time fundraising. It lets me do the work. Believe me, if I could do this without the running for office part, I would. The work is what motivates me. And as an attorney who practiced in our state courts, who did a lot of stuff around state law, that's where my knowledge base was. So this was a natural fit for me.
And why do you think people should cast a vote for you and re-elect you again in this election?
I think that we've really proven that we are there for people, that we're responsive, that we are representing this district in a way that matters, that we're delivering on our promises, and we're bringing home our fair share of that tax money that we pay to the state.
And how are you feeling tonight, since it's going to be a deciding time for you to be re-elected? So how are you feeling?
I'm optimistic about my race. I'm trying to compartmentalize the federal stuff. I try to keep that in the background. We're going to not focus on it. Wake me up tomorrow, tell me what happened. But for our race, I'm feeling good. The turnout's been high. So
thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I'm here with Marcus C. Williams, running for 137th Assembly District in New York. So I just want to know, what was it that made you want to run for a position like this with the Republican Party?
So what got me into politics was the fact that I didn't like the way my community was going, and seeing dilapidated houses run down, crime going out of control, and drugs permeating our community. I reached out to some elected officials, and I got basically the cold shoulder, and that really was what got me started in politics. And as I grew in learning about politics, I said, hey, okay, so these people control these laws, these people control those laws, and the state assembly controls the majority of the laws that give the people in my community grief. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, so your platform is essentially to try and clean up your community. That's what I'm understanding?
So, but it's not just crime, right? It is crime, but it's not just crime. It's also education. It's also business development. It's also housing. You know, all of these things are very major issues that we see every day, and everybody's experiencing them. Look at the costs of rising food, rising energy costs. This is stuff that's paining everybody every day. You would ask yourself, why isn't our representatives actually doing anything? Senate's not doing anything. Assembly's not doing anything. And Assembly controls laws and the budget. Make that make sense to me.
Okay, so your goal when you get in here is to help your community through passing legislation. How do you plan on working with the Democratic and independent Assembly people should you be elected? So, like, how are you going to work across the aisle?
Oh, I'm going to give them the most grief in the world. That's how I'm going to do it. Because I'm going to bring it to the attention of the public what's actually going on. And I'm going to propose legislation that's very equal and even-tempered and actually fiscally responsible. So you'll never see anything come out of me that needs all type of extra funding or sounds all loopy and crazy. It's going to be really regimented, straight, and like they like to say nowadays, common sense. You know, I think it's overused now, but we're lacking that. So that's where I would be. And anybody that's like, oh, well, we're not going to go along with it because it's presented by a Republican or whatever, I'm like, listen, community, listen, district. I got 3 days a week that I can be in my district. I'm going to be there every day being like, these people giving me grief over a financial literacy law that I'm trying to pass for you guys. They're giving me grief because I want to hold criminals accountable. You know, and the community's not going to have that, and I'm going to tell them exactly where to direct their ire. These are their emails. These are their offices. You need to start calling people and letting them know that you're not with that and they need to do something.
All righty. Thank you.
You're tuned in
Thank
to
you.
Western New York's election night coverage on 89.1 The Point, WBSU Brockport.
So we did get some updates from the New York State election site. Prop 1 has passed. That is the anti-discrimination amendment to the New York State Constitution. That has passed by a pretty overwhelming majority. But we also have some updates on other stuff. So let me just look through here. For the state Supreme Court, right now in Monroe County, Aaron Skinner is taking the lead. Of course, this is really early and there's a lot of people on the ballot, so things could change as we get more stuff. If you look at the state Supreme Court, it goes down to the Pennsylvania border from here. So odds are it'll change. We just have the information for Monroe County right now. For the representative of the 25th District in Congress at the federal level, Joseph Morelli is leading Greg Stadwick 65.88% to 34.05%, which is a very large margin. For a state senator of the 54th District, Pamela Hemling is winning 50.85% to 49.15%. For state senator of the 55th District, Samar Borak is winning 66% to 33%. For state senator of the 56th District, Jeremy Cooney is beating Jim Van Brode 62 to 37%. For state senator of the 62nd District, Robert Orr went unopposed and is winning with 99% of the votes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so great night for him. Member of Assembly, moving on to the Assembly here. James Schluter is winning 52% over Brian Mankeltow at 47.64%. Again, if I pronounce any of these candidates' names wrong, apologies to them. I'm just reading this off a piece of paper. Member of Assembly for the 133rd District, Colleen Walsh-Williams is winning 55% of the vote, while Andrea K. Bailey is winning 44. Member of Assembly for the 134th District, Josh Jensen, again ran unopposed, winning 99% of the vote. He's already sent us his speech, so you'll be hearing that later. Other voters are saying for Member of Assembly 135th, Jen Lunsford is winning with 64% of the vote, and Kimberly De La Rosa has 35% of the vote, almost 36. For Member of Assembly 136, we're looking at Sarah H. Clark is winning with 71.91% of the vote, while Orlando J. Riviera has 28.5%. Again, this is all early voting, subject to change. All these numbers will most definitely shift. Member of Assembly 137th is Demon Meeks right now, 73% of the vote versus Marcus C. Williams at 26.24%. Right now, Member of Assembly 138th, Harry Bronson is 68% of the vote compared to Tracy A. DeFlorio's 31%. And Hunter will continue this list.
Yes, this is a very long list that we have here on this 89.1 The Point list.
It is every race.
It's every race, and it will not be necessarily conducive to go through all, but I will say that I got one here as well, the county clerk. Right now it's Jamie Romeo, the person that is running on the ticket of Democrat and Working Families, has it by 62.84% to Peter Vasquez, the Republican and Conservative Party member. That is 36.4%. So there we have it with that. Moving on to other aspects. Nationally, Maryland calls for abortion rights. It passed. Florida failed with the abortion rights. Many votes to come from Atlanta, Gwinnett County, and Savannah. Harris is down, actually, approximately 200,000 in that area. Still needs to be counted, nevertheless. Charlotte has 500,000 in North Carolina. Still yet that it needs to be listed. And also, additionally, that 25% counted, a lot to go in Pennsylvania. And so, one last time, is that AP called Prop 1, and that's just great. Additionally, that lots in Metro Atlanta has to go. And I want to also mention that there are many places at the 10 o'clock hour that are closed. Those states are Montana, Utah, Nevada. And then the 11 o'clock, it's Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, California. 12 a.m., it's Hawaii and Alaska. Hawaii is actually before Alaska. That's all we have here so far in the studio right now. We're going to be taking it down to the hotel here, the Democrat Hotel, coming up next.
Thank you, guys. We are here live at the Hyatt Hotel, the Monroe County Democrat headquarters for tonight. This room has really packed out. You really won't find an open seat here. In some of the House District 25 general election results, Joseph Morelli is leading Greg Sadwick by a vote of 112,000 to 61,000. Morelli has 65% of the vote. In the presidential election, Kamala Harris has just won New York. New York has been claimed for her. She has around 60% of the vote. We will have interviews coming up. I was able to get an interview with Harry Bronson, who is running for district assembly here. We will also have interviews coming out on our Instagram with some Democratic candidates. But yeah, vibes are high here as votes keep rolling in. As I said, we will have an interview with Harry Bronson playing shortly, and we will have interviews going out on our Instagram. But that will just about do it for us live here at the Hyatt Hotel with the Monroe County Democrats. For 89.1 The Point, now let's take it back to the studio.
Welcome back to the studio here on this 89.1 The Point election coverage. I am Hunter Wright. We are going to be taking it down to the Republican Center.
Thank you, Hunter. We are at the Italian American Community Center, where we are with the Republican candidates and constituents. So, Dom, what have you seen in the last hour?
Last hour or so, just a little while ago, we had Josh Jensen gave his victory speech to the crowd after he was elected to the 134th Assembly District. He did run unopposed, though, so it was a pretty quick call. Overall, though, just kind of having a fun night socializing with the candidates and their supporters that come in and out.
Yeah, so Jensen was quick right after the polls closed
Pretty
to go
much
right up to the stage, right after your old Scoutmaster
That's right, my old Scoutmaster.
Kicked off the whole thing, saying it's 9 o'clock, the polls are closed, and then immediately he called up Jensen to talk.
That's right. And Jensen ran unopposed, which is how he was called so quick after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and we do see other politicians, but it looks like they are still waiting for their races to be called and counted. And when we do see those, we will give updates on social media and on our website, on articles. And later, you can actually hear, later in this hour, you'll be able to hear Jensen's victory speech that we were able to record here for 89.1 The Point. That's all from here at the Italian American Community Center. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you for joining us back here in the studio for 89.1 The Point's election coverage. So, as Joe mentioned, we do have those interviews who are coming up later. Hunter, what is your reaction to what they're talking about? I know it's starting to pick up.
Oh, it's great that it's starting to pick up now. I will say that. And absolutely that it's going to just be absolutely populated with information from here on out. And additionally, I will also say that they talked about Josh Jensen, I mean, yes, he did run unopposed. There are a number of different locations, different races where a lot of people ran unopposed, you know?
Yeah, all of Orleans County is actually one of those places. There's no challengers at the local level in Orleans County. That's actually why we're not out there, is that we didn't think it was interesting enough. But we will keep you guys updated on those races. But, you know, everyone who ran won. So I'm sure they're all having a great old night.
Absolutely, and that also goes for the other county that we covered, the Genesee County as well. That a lot of them are Republicans, and so again, we felt that it was most fair for the listeners to go and hear the most contentious county, populated county in our listening area as well. Now, there are various races. I mean, we already talked about the fact that Gillibrand, she won, right, and that additionally that for the state Supreme Court. It looks like right now Aaron Skinner is winning that race at the moment. And then in the 25th Congressional District, that Joe Morelli, and Greg Sadwick, right now, being that Morelli is the incumbent, it looks as though he is probably going to win for the Democrats. And so on and so forth. But also we have that Jeremy Cooney and Jim Van Brederode. At the moment, being that Cooney is the incumbent, he is likely to win.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to see how these races are turning out. I think for the Democrats, Prop 1 passing is a big win for them. It shows a lot of support. So I think it's been a big night for them already, and certainly with all these races calls, they're certainly doing well. At the national level, it may look a little bit different, but certainly for the state level, the Democrats seem to be taking a lot of wins here.
Absolutely. And, you know, I heard something like the statistic that came out recently was that based on the fact that this passed, wasn't it like 2/3 passed?
Yeah, as of reporting now, it's closer to 2/3. Before it was 80-20, but it's getting closer to 2/3 as it's being updated as all the other counties are reporting in. So seems to be passing with an overwhelming majority.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it did not pass in Florida. So it's not like these different things pass all the time.
What's interesting with the Florida case is that Florida amendments require 60% of the vote, where in New York it's a flat 50. That's why, you know, the 60% it's being at right now is overwhelming majority, while in Florida didn't pass. Florida got really close. They're actually beating us in percentage-wise, really, with a final count, really, of 57.8%. So they were just right there, but they couldn't quite get it over the line.
And what do you think about Pennsylvania right now? I mean, 25% is counted. Seems like it's going to take a while.
Pennsylvania is interesting, especially with all the news coming out about the bomb threats that the FBI reported.
That too.
They think it's a similar situation to the Atlanta threats that we reported earlier on this night, that they're not credible. They're just here to cause confusion, and that they're probably Russian state actors trying to perform some type of intelligence operation. But we'll get more about that as it comes out. And we also know that there's been some interesting things happening in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They have to recount some of the absentee ballots there because some protocol was not followed. But this kind of stuff happens every election. That's why there's election laws about all of this. That's why they have to recount them. So as the night goes on, we're going to see more and more upsets, more and more janky things happen. But it's all within the norm, really.
I see. And once again, to update everyone that the 10 p.m. states, their polls closed. Those states would be Utah, Nevada, and Montana. It's not a surprise that we are seeing this thing of, you know, you're going from east to west here. At 11 p.m., it's going to close in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, California. 12 a.m., it's going to be Hawaii, and 1 a.m. is Alaska. So that's all we have here right now, and we're going to be taking it to a break with more information to come as we go on this 89.1 The Point election coverage.
Thank you for joining us.
Hello and welcome back to this 2024 election coverage here on 89.1 The Point. I am your host, Hunter Wright, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Robert Merrill. It's great to have everyone here.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to just start off with the local aspects at this moment right now, just very, very quickly. Right now, it appears that, for example, the race that includes Morelli is quite a landslide, is it?
A landslide, I don't know if I would put it quite that way, but it is seeming to be Morelli's taking it home. Of course, that is just for Monroe County and his district extends a little bit beyond that. It's not quite just Monroe County, but the majority of his votes do lie in here, and he is taking 60% of the vote. So,
wow. Okay, and off to some national things, just as a quick piece for each of these states. Right now in Arizona, it's very close. Number of things to be called still. Less than 4,000 of a difference. Very, very close. One of the closest states right now, if not the closest. In Iowa, it's also close. Large college towns not reporting. Harris is consistent with projections, though, with various different polls as well. Wisconsin, it is a dead heat. Over half of votes in Milwaukee County. And in Michigan, it's close. Detroit did not report at all as of yet. And in Pennsylvania, Trump has a slight lead with about 1 million to still count. And most of that counting is in southeast Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia region. In North Carolina, it is very, very close, and it's actually basically a toss-up. Charlotte, North Carolina, right now, the votes in Charlotte, North Carolina, 65 to 32 in favor of Harris. However, 16% is uncounted in that area. So that's still a toss-up. In Virginia, it's close. Richmond and Fairfax are not counted. Georgia, again, close. Mostly that Atlanta votes are called. Most of the Atlanta votes are called and could go to Harris. So it's really, really close in apparently all these states most of the time. Now, we have other states like New York and California that are most likely and are going with Harris at this time. And, of course, that the Nebraska districts 1 and 2 are very, very close. And on to the Senate and House of Representatives, 37 for the Democrats, 48 for the Republicans in the Senate, and then 97 for the Democrats in the House of Representatives to the 137 Republicans in the House of Representatives. So, a lot of stuff.
Lots of information. Everything's picking up right now. It's very interesting to see. A lot of these areas have not finished counting. They're large blue cities, so you're seeing a very staunch Republican map if you're looking at it right now. But there will definitely be a shift. It's a blue wave. That's just what always happens. But is it enough to overcome that Republican lead? I don't know. I think it'll be very close. People have been saying it's going to be close this whole election cycle, and I think they're right.
And we will have to see. And as we go on throughout this hour and the hour after that and so on, a lot is to come here. That's all we have right now in the studio. We're going to be taking it down to our reporters. Thank you.
All right, we are here at the Italian-American Community Center, and this is the Republican headquarters for tonight. Dominic, we just saw a couple of banners get taken down, and actually we're seeing almost all of the banners being taken down, like, as we speak. So what is it that we're seeing other than the banners taken down?
I think we're starting to get close to the end of the show here. It looks like people are starting to pack up much more having on the banners. We did just see Judge Romeo Stacey Romeo, that is, gave a speech a little while ago. She has not won yet. She is predicted to win, and she is ahead at the moment, but she hasn't won yet. She just wanted to give a little speech earlier to thank her supporters and her family for the support she's received throughout her campaign season.
Yeah, actually, I interviewed Judge Stacey Romeo earlier this election cycle, and she largely just talked about how she wants to make sure that the law is being upheld to the standards that the law should be upheld in the way that the words are written. So we did just see all of these banners taken down. Initially, we thought maybe that it was that one race had been called, and then we saw literally every other one taken down. They are cleaning up the pizza. They are cleaning up the drinks and stuff that are on the tables. So it does look like we are actually kind of just hitting that winding down portion of the night.
This does sound like they may be calling, at least preparing to call, some elections soon. So hopefully we'll have some more news to share with you.
Yeah, and as we get those updates, we will share them with you. But that's all we have here from the Republican headquarters at the Italian-American Community Center here in Rochester. Back to you in the studio.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of an interview with people that are political figures in this 2024 election coverage project here on 89.1 The Point. I am Hunter Wright, and I am here today with Mayor Margie Blackman, the mayor of the village of Brockport. All right, so to start off here, tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, I have lived in Brockport since 1977. When I came to SUNY Brockport, I was hired as an associate professor in the Department of Anthropology, and I taught in the Department of Anthropology from 1977 until 2007 when I retired. I grew up in the Midwest. I went to school in Indianapolis, Indiana. My college and graduate school experience was in Ohio. I graduated from Miami of Ohio with an undergraduate degree in psychology, graduated from Ohio State University with a PhD in anthropology. My first job was at the University of Delaware, and then I was able to come here in 1977. And after retirement, somehow I wandered into local politics.
That is quite a terrific and long-standing history there you got there. Being that you were a professor at SUNY Brockport and the current mayor of Brockport, what is your opinion of the local election, in particular, political trends and issues that voters care about?
Local elections, you're talking how local, village, state?
Say in this given region.
In this given region,
yes,
yeah.
Most particularly Brockport.
Okay, yeah. One of the interesting things about really local elections in Brockport, we're a village of 7,100 people. We lost a few during COVID, as did SUNY Brockport. And 2.2 square miles, that's our local government area. The SUNY Brockport is within the village of Brockport. And Brockport is the largest of 10 villages in Monroe County. We have a very active Village Mayors Association, and it's great for sharing information, for collaborating, for learning things from other people. The villages, for the most part, tend to be different from the next level up, the towns, in terms of their political affiliations, because we are nonpartisan. Village government is nonpartisan. We run on locally identified and named parties, and we don't run on a Democratic Republican ticket line, which we find great. And the towns do. I mean, the towns, the towns very, very much always do. County legislature, as well. Judges, so on and so forth. And I will say that one of the things I've always said about village government in Brockport is that on our village board we had a couple of new people elected, but right in June. But right before that, we were our national affiliations where we had 2 Republicans, we had 2 Democrats, and we had 1 independent.
Oh wow!
And political affiliation, national political affiliation, never came into any of our decisions. That was great, because the decisions, they were all about, they were all local things. Filling potholes, collecting garbage. That's not about being a Democrat or a Republican. That's, that's doing your public service to, your local people.
Once again, we are here with Margie Blackman, mayor of the village of Brockport. Has Brockport changed politically in the past 10 years or so?
I think the Brockport, in terms of national political affiliation, tends to go Democratic in national elections. It's much more so than, say, the surrounding town of Sweden or the surrounding town of Clarkson. I think we're pretty much in a pretty conservative rural area of New York State, up here locally and regionally. Political affiliations have become more marked in recent years. It's just part of what's happening nationally. I think it's there's much more of a divide.
Polarization.
Yeah. When I first came here, I didn't pay attention to. I did not vote in a village election until the year 2000.
Oh. Okay.
I was I was tied to my academic work. I was gone during the summer doing research in northern Alaska, British Columbia, and I'm sort of embarrassed to say it, but on the other hand, once I got involved, I really got involved. But it was interesting. I just paid no attention to it. I wasn't here during the summer. My heart was in Alaska, British Columbia, not so much in Brockport. It's where I did research, raised my kids, where I worked.
What current issues are you currently addressing or, say, focusing on at this time?
In the village?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that was very big this year, this is always a big issue in the village, is the high tax rate that Brockport has. We have probably the highest tax rate of any of the 10 villages in Monroe County, and there's one main reason for that. It's SUNY Brockport. The college is tax exempt, and so we have other tax exempt properties too, churches, that lifetime assistance, that kind of thing. But the big chunk is SUNY Brockport. So that raises raises our taxes by quite a lot. And at one period in time, we fought for and got something called SUNY Impact Aid. We got it out of the state legislature, and it was additional monies to help offset the cost of having a SUNY institution within the boundaries of the village that used village resources like police, like fire, like code enforcement, and so forth. And for us, that lasted for 1 year, and then the whole thing disappeared. Okay. So we're trying to get it back. There's only one SUNY municipality that gets it, and that's New Paltz.
Wow. Okay.
And it's not called SUNY Impact Aid anymore. It's called Local Something or Other Assistance. So we tried very hard, lobbied the state legislature, and tried to get it, for us this year, and it didn't happen. So.
And once again, we are here with Mayor Margie Blackman, mayor of the village of Brockport. Detail the listeners on your view of the national election.
I mean, I'm disturbed with what I see. I mean, this divide, the national divide in this country, has gone on and on since 2016, and everybody's got family members on both sides of the divide. They don't understand each other. They argue with each other. Some families, they don't speak to each other. I have a brother who's on the opposite political side from me, and we sort of joke about it sometimes, but it hasn't really affected ultimately our relationship and my caring for him and him caring for me. We just don't talk about it. But we did at first. I mean, back in 2016 and the 2015 leading up to the election, we certainly talked about it, a lot, I think it's gotten very tribal, and I think, people, they talk about people in their silos, and I think it's really true. I mean, you're watching a certain news feed if you're politically on the right, you're watching other news if you're on the left, and it's not like the old days when, you had three major news channels, and you watched ABC, CBS, or NBC.
How have you dealt with people that differ from you politically?
There was a wonderful cartoon that somebody showed me a couple of weeks ago, and it was a cartoon that you could share with people either on the left or people on the right, because it was very funny. It was a little kid who was standing at the desk of his teacher, and he says, "My dog ate my homework."
Yeah.
And then an immigrant ate my dog.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But everybody thought it was funny. I shared it. I happily shared it with people that were on the right, and and it was it was ludicrous. It was funny. It was very funny, and everybody laughed.
It is always nice to have those wholesome moments of coming together and being just civil.
Yeah. Being civil and humor, I think humor is really important. That's why I mentioned Saturday Night Live Cold Open. That's why I had no problem sharing that little cartoon with people on both sides.
And also, what is your approach to reach disenfranchised voters?
Well, I can tell you one thing that happened. That says sort of where I stand on this. I was asked to make remarks at the naturalization ceremony that was held in the Seymour Ballroom here. It's awesome. I mean, I think they do it every year, and a judge comes from Buffalo. A federal judge comes from Buffalo with his people, including somebody that deals with passports, and he conducts the naturalization ceremony. And Dr. McPherson was asked to speak at that, and I was asked to speak at that, and I considered it a real honor. And the thing that struck me was, oh my God, these are 94 new citizens of the United States that are legally citizens, and the most important thing they can do today here, register to vote. And they had the League of Women Voters there who handed out voter registration forms and, registered them to vote. And I thought about that, and I thought, all this complaint about immigrations and, we're emptying out, insane asylums, and people are even coming from the Congo and, whatever else. They're horrible people, they're blah, blah, blah. And then I think about, you've got these ceremonies going on all over the United States at different points in time. So we are welcoming new citizens, legal citizens, into this country, people that have had their green cards, who've applied for citizenship, who've done it, and this happens. And I think it's great. And it's like, I said to them, we like to think of ourselves as a nation of immigrants, which we are.
Once again, we are here with Mayor Margay Blackman, the mayor of the village of Brockport. Okay, so being that you are an anthropologist and previously an anthropology professor at SUNY Brockport, what is the anthropological perspective of this year's election and politics as a whole, national level?
I don't know. I can't help but sort of compare the two candidates and so forth. And we've got one person who's a very macho, presents this macho, sort of personality that's kind of a combination of high school crass, high school bully kind of thing that appeals to certain people. And you've got the other person who's a woman, and therein is an issue about being a woman who is, seeking power, and who, no matter how well she might do something, she's accused of being, a moron. She's despicable. She's and so forth. So I think there was something in the New York Times today. I haven't read it yet, but it was about the fact that women in power seem to be held to a higher standard than men. Don't know. I'll have to read it. But that's sort of one, I suppose, anthropological take on it.
I see. And what would you say for the future for yourself or in the Brockport area, just in the way in which that you are currently the mayor, that you see Brockport going, and how you see yourself, what you see yourself doing, say?
Boy, that's the big unknown, the big question mark, because I have decided this is my last term, and after 12 years, it's enough. One could try to go on, and there are probably lots of other things I'd like to do, but you get to be a certain age, and we heard this again and again and again in this current election. Joe Biden is too old. Joe Biden is too old. Et cetera. And so I think it's much better, rather than being forced out because you're old, to decide, okay, I've done most of what I wanted to do. I'm happy with what I've done. I'm happy to still be of help, but probably 12 years of me is enough. I will still stay very involved in local things. I'm available to help. I'll probably do more social things, because so much of my life has centered on Village Hall and my village employees and my fellow elected officials. So I think I need to pare back some of that, travel more. I don't know, but I'll stay involved. And I certainly have used my anthropology throughout my local, career in anthropology. Right now, one of the things I decided to do, and that this came after this, when Cuomo was governor, everybody had to look at police reform, and that was a huge thing. We had a big committee that included the police that that looked at this whole issue. And one of the things that I decided that I wanted to do, I thought I'd love to write a series of articles on our police force in Brockport, and that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of showcasing each individual officer. I've done four of them now. They're published in West Side News, and it's really sort of we're a community that's very much into community policing. In other words, feet on the street, people out, police out among the people, be visible, be part of the community, engage with the community. And I figured that doing these series of articles is my way of contributing to, community policing. Who are these police as people? What are their aspirations? What do they like doing? And so I've interviewed, as I say, 4. I'm going after the lieutenant next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another one down.
Yeah, I've got quite a few to go. I want to get them done before my term is up.
How do you see the future politically here in the Brockport area and just overall in the region of Rochester, New York, in the coming years, and perhaps even on this very, very important election, nationally even, for our area?
Yeah. I don't know if things are going to change. I mean, we have lived cheek and jowl with a town, 2 towns actually, that have been uniformly for a long period of time one-party towns. I don't necessarily see that changing. I think what I'm thinking of in terms of Brockport itself is more. I'm hoping that we will continue to be very forward-thinking and plan for the future. We've done a lot of stuff that's future. That's future oriented, and a lot of our vision about what we want Brockport to be is focused on the future. We want to develop more recreation, tourism, more development of the Erie Canal. We've just applied for a big grant called a New York Forward Grant that if we get it will bring us about $5 million in development.
Wow.
And actually
Okay.
a lot more than that. And I think that you do have to have a forward look to think about your community rather than people saying, no, we can't do that. That costs too much. No, we're a poor community. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing that. No, we should be doing more. And we've been, we've looked at and taken on various green initiatives. That's been important, and we're trying to keep up with doing that. We're a Tree City USA, which is important, which is our commitment to planting a lot of trees.
And one last question here, and once again, this is Mayor Margie Blackman, the mayor of Village of Brockport. So, final words or advice for those that are going to eventually vote, and for the people of Brockport and the surrounding towns and counties.
The most important thing is to vote, because your vote counts. And I think you have a responsibility to educate yourself about the issues. I'm finding it very hard right now nationally that there are a lot of people that are undecided, that can't figure out who to vote for. I would hope that people would continue to educate themselves about who they're going to vote for, and that you can't go through life saying, it's not worth it to vote. I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think that's a horrible attitude to have, and I think about all those new citizens that have come in, that really want to vote and should, and hopefully will.
All right. Well, I appreciate the conversation. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. And I'm hopeful. I am. I'm an optimist.
This is Sharvani Regney from 89.1 The Point, and here I have with me Jen Lunsford, who's running for the member of the Assembly from the 135th District, and she's running for her 3rd term as a member of the Assembly. Jen, why are you motivated to run again for the member of the Assembly, and why do you think you can make an impact in the community?
So there's still so much more work to do. As much as, we've made a lot of progress on a lot of the things we ran for office for originally, making sure that we drove down the cost of childcare, making sure that our nursing homes were getting the funding that they need, fully funding foundation aid. As we look to next year, we know that some of that progress is getting eroded, and we need to fight to make sure that we maintain the progress that we've had so far and also make the gains we need to make some of these places whole. Nursing homes in particular, we still have 900 beds closed in Monroe County, and that's affecting not only seniors who need care, but there's a backlog in our hospitals that they can't get through.
And what kind of issues locally as well as state level that you are going to prioritize if you are reelected again as a member of the Assembly?
So healthcare is huge, healthcare access, particularly for our seniors and people with developmental disabilities. We have a tremendous housing shortage when it comes to people with IDD. So we're working with local partners who are trying to find creative solutions to get around some of the limitations that we have through OPWDD. That's a big issue in my district, but also looking into next year, while we fully funded foundation aid, which is the way we fund our schools at the state level, we see some erosion in the way the formula is being looked at. So we need to make sure that our schools stay level, if not gain, over next year. I know that's a huge issue for people in my district.
And how do you and your team are going to maintain the communication with the local community here and try to pay attention to their issues and try to address it in a state level?
So one of the things we really pride ourselves on is we have 4 town halls a year. That was a campaign promise I made when I ran in 2020, and it's one that I have kept. So in addition to non-subject specific town halls where you can just come and ask me about anything, we also have a lot of subject specific forums. We do a lot of community outreach. I go and meet with groups, particularly the Highlands at Pittsford has invited me several times to talk to groups there about organic waste diversion and recycling. They're really into environmental issues, and as the only local member on the Environmental Conservation Committee, that's huge for me. So just continuously being in the community and making sure that people know what I do so they know when to call me.
And for you personally, you could have run for any other position, but you decided to go for the position again as your 3rd term. So why does being an assembly member matter to you, and what motivates you to go represent Monroe County in New York State Assembly?
The Assembly can have so much impact, and the group of people that I represent, it's about 134,000. That's the perfect amount of people. I can still be very present. I can make individual constituent calls. I don't have to spend 2/3 of my time fundraising. It lets me do the work. Believe me, if I could do this without the running for office part, I would. The work is what motivates me. And as an attorney who practiced in our state courts, who did a lot of stuff around state law, that's where my knowledge base was. So this was a natural fit for me.
And why do you think people should cast a vote for you and re-elect you again in this election?
I think that we've really proven that we are there for people, that we're responsive, that we are representing this district in a way that matters, that we're delivering on our promises, and we're bringing home our fair share of that tax money that we pay to the state.
And how are you feeling tonight, since it's going to be a deciding time for you to be re-elected? So how are you feeling?
I'm optimistic about my race. I'm trying to compartmentalize the federal stuff. I try to keep that in the background. We're going to not focus on it. Wake me up tomorrow, tell me what happened. But for our race, I'm feeling good. The turnout's been high. So
thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I'm here with Marcus C. Williams, running for 137th Assembly District in New York. So I just want to know, what was it that made you want to run for a position like this with the Republican Party?
So what got me into politics was the fact that I didn't like the way my community was going, and seeing dilapidated houses run down, crime going out of control, and drugs permeating our community. I reached out to some elected officials, and I got basically the cold shoulder, and that really was what got me started in politics. And as I grew in learning about politics, I said, hey, okay, so these people control these laws, these people control those laws, and the state assembly controls the majority of the laws that give the people in my community grief. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, so your platform is essentially to try and clean up your community. That's what I'm understanding?
So, but it's not just crime, right? It is crime, but it's not just crime. It's also education. It's also business development. It's also housing. You know, all of these things are very major issues that we see every day, and everybody's experiencing them. Look at the costs of rising food, rising energy costs. This is stuff that's paining everybody every day. You would ask yourself, why isn't our representatives actually doing anything? Senate's not doing anything. Assembly's not doing anything. And Assembly controls laws and the budget. Make that make sense to me.
Okay, so your goal when you get in here is to help your community through passing legislation. How do you plan on working with the Democratic and independent assembly people should you be elected? So, like, how are you going to work across the aisle?
Oh, I'm going to give them the most grief in the world. That's how I'm going to do it. Because I'm going to bring it to the attention of the public what's actually going on, and I'm going to propose legislation that's very equal and even-tempered and actually fiscally responsible. So you'll never see anything come out of me that needs all type of extra funding or sounds all loopy and crazy. It's going to be really regimented, straight, and like they like to say nowadays, common sense. You know, I think it's overused now, but we're lacking that. So that's where I would be. And anybody that's like, oh, well, we're not going to go along with it because it's presented by a Republican or whatever, I'm like, listen, community, listen, district. I got 3 days a week that I can be in my district. I'm going to be there every day being like, these people giving me grief over a financial literacy law that I'm trying to pass for you guys. They're giving me grief because I want to hold criminals accountable. You know, and the community's not going to have that, and I'm going to tell them exactly where to direct their ire. These are their emails. These are their offices. You need to start calling people, letting them know that you're not with that, and they need to do something.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Was it Ryan? No.
All right, so
I'm
if
Joe.
you could just real quick explain to our viewers what you're running for and what your position kind of does.
I'm running for re-election for the 138th Assembly District. That covers the towns of Riga, Chilai, Henrietta, and portions of the city.
We are here with Harry Bronson at the Hyatt Hotel. What inspired you to run for this office, and what do you kind of hope to achieve for the community?
So I've been in this office almost for 14 years. At the end of December, it'll be 14 years. What inspired me to run way back in 2010 was a number of people from my community, the LGBTQ community, approached me and asked me if I would ever consider running. I ultimately decided I would, and really am glad I did that. I was an anti-discrimination lawyer prior to that, workers' rights lawyer prior to that, and my husband and I also owned a coffee shop. But I was able to take a lot of the work I was doing through those venues and through my advocacy and bring it to the New York State legislature so that I could pass bills that really help people with housing, with mental health issues, making sure that we have workforce development so that people can be trained to seize upon jobs that are available and things of that nature.
How do you think that the National Democratic Platform influences your stance on issues here in New York State?
I'm pretty well aligned with the National Democrat platform. Certainly there's some areas of differences, but certainly I'm very pro women's right to choose, pro LGBTQ, believe that every person, no matter who they are, has dignity, and with that they deserve equity, justice, and opportunities to succeed. And I think that's what my party believes in.
When national issues become polarizing, how does your campaign keep the focus on local needs and concerns?
Well, certainly we can't ignore national issues. We have to be part of that dialogue and talk to constituents when they reach out to us and they have questions. But my job is to represent the people of the state, and in particular the 138th Assembly District. So I try to represent them the best I can as being chair of the Labor Committee in the Assembly, making sure that we have economic development and workforce development that go hand in hand. I'm working right now very closely on making the change from a fossil energy economy to a green energy economy and how we're going to develop that. So even though there are federal issues that impact us, our focus is what can we do here in New York State.
You talked about the LGBT community being a big inspiration for you running for office. Is there anything else? Like, have you always wanted to run for office? Has it always been like a big goal of yours?
Notwithstanding, I have a minor in poli-sci. I had never thought I would ever run for office. That was just by chance I got that minor. And I always wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to represent people. That's what I was doing full time prior to running for office. And, I really, moving my work in anti-discrimination law and in workers' rights, labor law, and employment law to being a policymaker really has been a very easy transformation. and so much of what I was doing there, doing now in the assembly.
And then final question for you, how do you envision working with state and federal representatives to bring positive change to this area?
Yeah, I will continue what I've been always doing as a legislator, and that is I welcome everybody into my office. If they agree with me or disagree with me, I think dialogue is important. I may be old school, but I believe that the art of compromise is the art of good government.
All right, thank you so much.
You're tuned in to Western New York's election night coverage on 89.1 The Point, WBSU Brockport.
Welcome back from the commercial break. I am Hunter Wright, your host, here with Robbie Merrill.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to be taking it down to the Democrat Center, the Hyatt, and hearing from them about what's going on with the election races. Here we go, taking it down.
Thank you, Hunter and Robbie. Well, this is 89.1 The Point, joining the Monroe County Democrats at the Hyatt residency for part of our live election coverage. Right now, there is a press conference that we will get you the audio from at the bottom of the hour, but first we will give you some results of some elections that have been called. For the U.S. Senate, Kristen Gillibrand has won. They are reporting after a 79% chance of reporting. She has about 4 million votes right now. Joseph Morelli has won the 25th district. Out of the 55th district, Samara Bruick has won that as well. Jeremy Cooney has won the 56th district, and Jen Lunsford has won the 135th district, following the 136th district. Sarah Clark, they are projecting a win. Monroe County is sweeping the 130 districts, as Desmond Meeks is reported to have won that race as well. Harry Bronson has won the 138th district. Monroe County Court Judge Michael Asaldi has won. They are reporting his win. Jamie Romeo for Monroe County Clerk has won his fair share as well. To keep you updated on the presidential election, if you do not know, Kamala Harris currently trails Donald J. Trump. Currently trails Donald Trump right now. Kamala Harris with 153 electoral college votes, while Donald Trump has 214, awaiting states, critical swing states such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. But that'll do it for us live here at the Hyatt Hotel with the Monroe County Democrats for 89.1 The Point. Now let's take it back to the studio.
Hey, pass me that. Bro, I'm stoned. Pass me those chips. Alright, it's getting late. I'm gonna head out. Don't drive high. Even though many states have legalized recreational cannabis, 0 have legalized driving under the influence. Weed slows your reaction time and impairs judgment and concentration. Don't do what he did and force your loved ones or someone else's to receive a heartbreaking phone call because you smoked and drove. This is a message from 89.1 The Point.
Welcome back to the election coverage here on 89.1 The Point. Whether you're listening in Harrison Dining Hall or in Sweden, thank you for joining us. We certainly have a lot to talk about right now. So, just getting into some of the national stuff. Arizona, which is a contentious swing state, had the polls at 9 precincts extended due to some bomb threats. Again, this is a common theme for tonight. It seems that outside actors are placing bomb threats, which for local emergency officials have to take seriously in case one of them is actually credible. Luckily, none of these have been credible, but they have forced Arizona authorities to extend some of this stuff at the polling places, especially around the Navajo area, which, I mean, that could change all of history right now, so it's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's razor-sharp close, I'm telling you. Less than 4,000 of a difference between the Democrats and Republicans. Quite a time that is right there. Now, additionally, I have other things that I want to also mention. For the first time in U.S. history, the Senate will have 2 black women serving. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware and Angela Alsobrooks in Maryland. First time. So there's that information for you as well. And then something else is that the Democrats need to win in Ohio and Montana to keep a hold on the Senate. Now, it looks like it's perhaps going to be quite unlikely, but we will see, won't we? Virginia went for Harris, and California and Washington State are going for Harris as well. So that's all I got for that.
On to some more local stuff now. If you are really invested in the propositions in Greece and Rush, we do have that information for you. Greece's ballot initiative failed. While Rush's passed, Greece was about how they were going to elect people to the town council. That initiative failed with only 44% of the vote, not meeting the requirement. However, Rush's proposition, which was about leasing out land to a local company, passed with 74% of the vote, which that's a pretty overwhelming majority. Again, if you really cared about those, that information's out there now. I'm sure all 5 people who really cared are super, super invested. But I'm glad you guys got what you wanted.
A couple interesting stories that came out here just around the United States and the national perspective as well is that Ted Cruz, the Republican, is leading Democrat Colin Allred by roughly 8 percentage points with about 2/3 of the expected votes reported thus far at the moment. 67% and more of the votes cast on Election Day, and he is winning those. And it is, well, what have we got for that? And then also that there is, with nearly 2/3 of the expected votes counted in Ohio, Republican Bernie Moreno has opened a 5-point lead over Democratic U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown. About 30% of the estimated vote remains to be counted at this time. Quite close, isn't it, Robbie?
Yeah, it seems like the Republicans are leading in a lot of key races, especially in the Senate. I don't think the Democrats will be able to get a Senate majority. I certainly think now with Ohio getting called and all that stuff, it's going to be very, very hard for them. And getting legislation passed, if Harris does win and if they win in the House, certainly seems like they won't have a filibuster-proof majority. So it could stall pretty much any legislation from either side, to be honest.
As Americans, we cannot kid ourselves with the fact that there's a distinct possibility, and it is coming to fruition, that the Democrats would lose the Senate. Now, as for the House of Representatives, once again, that's a different situation. But we shall see, won't we?
Yep, if you want to stay updated with all of tonight's election information, keep us here at 89.1 The Point for all your local election coverage. We'll be going live in about 20 minutes for all that and more.
And so much more. Thank you, guys.
Welcome back to the election coverage here on 89.1 The Point. Thank you for joining us again tonight as we close down the night.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different things that we have for you all. And I want to actually start by mentioning something that's been going on consistently throughout this entire election night, and it's a very, very unfortunate one for a country that we live in, being that there has been bomb threats. Now, here's some updates on that. So according to AP News, that the Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure and Security Agency told reporters late this Tuesday that the election process endured minor disruptive activity throughout the day, but that the activity was anticipated and planned for nevertheless. At this time, we've seen no evidence of malicious activity impacting the integrity of election infrastructure, she said, and that being Jen Easterly. Easterly also said the bomb threats reported in multiple states were all deemed non-credible and did not affect the ability of voters to cast ballots. Apparently, it was all a scheme. Robbie?
Yeah, it seems to be one of those things that's just happening tonight. Luckily, this stuff happens not every election, but more frequently now. People have gotten used to it. They don't take this seriously, but they are used to it. They're not as intimidated. Once foreign countries start using this a lot, it becomes less effective, and people become more aware of the dangers, really. So I think this is maybe a one-time thing. I don't know if we should expect this every election cycle, but this is one is so important that they might be willing to play their cards.
On to other news here. It appears that in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the most important states matter in the situation of Kamala Harris. At this time, if she can win all three of those states, there's a distinct possibility that she very well could win. Nevada right now, there are no reports. Nothing, actually. And in Nebraska, District 1 is for Trump and District 2 is for Harris. So that is all we have on that at this moment in time.
Another big update in the state of New York is for New York's 22nd District. John Mannion has taken that 152% to Brandon Williams' 44%, giving the Democrats a huge swing on the national scale. That was definitely a contentious race. That's my home district in Syracuse out there. This is very interesting because House Speaker Johnson just came out the other day and talked about the CHIPS Act, and more specifically talking about how he wanted to get rid of it, which Brandon Williams then immediately corrected him on because it is so important, that Micron facility they're building there. This could also be a loss due to Prop 1. Syracuse in that region is huge on colleges, just as big as Monroe County and Rochester area. So a lot of those younger students, especially women, coming out to vote in favor of Prop 1 could have driven voter turnout that could have put Mannion on top. But I think it's very interesting. That's a race that a lot of people thought was going to go to Williams. So to see this as such a stark difference is very, very promising for Democrats in this state.
Yeah, that's very, well, I will say that is something that may or may not have been expected by different people. Additionally, that Oregon and New Mexico are going for Harris. Right now, the overall is approximately, now it's obviously subject to change, but as we speak right now, we are looking that it is 230 to 192 in favor of Trump. But obviously, we as a country have a lot to still count. Hawaii, again, they call at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so there are various other districts in New York as well that are to be called as of yet. The 3rd and 4th District, which is the Long Island District, the 17th District, which is the Lower Hudson area, and the 19th, which is the Upper Hudson areas. So still a lot to be called all over the place at this time. And Robbie, can you tell me exactly what you're feeling about all of this right now? Everything being all over the place, it seems like.
Yeah, this is pretty common for elections. I've been watching this stuff since I was little. So you see drastic swings. Right now, you got to pay attention to Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Those are the key states. Obviously, the Trump and Harris campaigns have both been there multiple times in the weeks leading up to this. Right now, Nevada's not reported anything, so who knows? But we're definitely watching those. In terms of other things, there was some flips in Nebraska. District 1 has gone for Trump, while District 2 has gone for Harris. Nebraska is one of those states that splits their electoral college, them and Maine, so it's always interesting to see how those results go. District 1 was a lot closer than a lot of people were guessing, so that's also very interesting, but not quite enough to take that electoral point away.
I see. And so can you tell us some more information on that you got there, the local stuff?
So to update all the local stuff, nothing really has changed. Right now, Harrison's leading with 58% of the vote compared to Trump and J.D. Vance's 40%. Of course, that's just for Monroe County. It doesn't really mean much overall. Gillibrand, again, is still leading. Those races have all been called. And there's not a whole lot to switch out here. It's really just percentages. This looks really good for the Democrats in Monroe County. Of course, there are some Republicans who have switched, looking at Assembly 133. There's been a huge switch with Colleen Williams-Walsh now losing to Andrea K. Bailey, who is a Republican. She's taking 59% of the votes compared to Williams' 40%. That is a switch from last time when we reported. So the races are definitely getting closer, as we call them. It's just very interesting to watch stuff happen and work as different areas and different precincts report. A lot of these are staying the same. Of course, you can go onto the New York State Election Board if you so choose and see these results for yourself.
Yeah. And, it appears that at least locally in Monroe County that the Cooneys of the world, Morellis of the world, and, of course, the Adam Bellows of the world, that those individuals, it was expected for them to win, and it appears that they have won at this time. Additionally, what are you about to say? Okay. And that going on to the other national stuff as well, that apparently as of approximately 11:40 p.m., that Arizona has Trump winning right now by, say, 3,000, only 3,000, very razor sharp. And that's in Minnesota, we're having 150,000 in favor of Harris. And Wisconsin, we have 170,000 in favor of Trump. And in Pennsylvania, we have 210,000 in favor of Trump right now. And then in Georgia, we have 130,000 in favor of Trump. And again, none in Nevada. Very interesting.
Yeah, Nevada is one of those states that reports all at the same time, so I'm sure they're all just tabulating what they're looking at right now. Tonight's shaking up to be just as close as everyone predicted. I think it's very interesting, especially with all the bomb threats and all the, I don't want to say foreign election interference, but these are reported to come from Russia. That's what the State Department has been reporting for a while now. But it doesn't seem to be causing that big of an issue. People are just standing in line longer, so maybe if you had pizza waiting at home for you, you might be a little disappointed. But democracy's still working, and that's always good to see.
Yes, this is definitely something that is probably, possibly, most likely expected in this country for something like this to happen. These different events that occur. But anyway, that's all I have right now. And is that all you got too?
That's all I have. Thank you, everyone out there listening to us tonight. We sure you're just as anxious as we are to get all these results, see everything happening. Make sure you pay attention. Keep on 89.1 The Point for the best new music first and all your new election coverage.
That's exactly right. And we will be standing by for the next hour from now to hear about everything else that's coming in, mostly nationally at this time. Thank you.
One of the most important things as Republicans living in Monroe County, New York State, is who we elect as our judges. And in many respects, these judges are the last line of defense we have here as New Yorkers. So it's just so important to us, and a lot goes into it, and they put their lives on hold, and themselves, their families, etc. And I am thrilled. We don't have finals yet. It's a little early, but the hour gets late. So I want to give an opportunity to Judge Stacey Romeo to come up and say a few words, who's now sitting firmly in second place in the two.
Thank you, Chairman Riley. And thank you to everyone who's here, but especially these folks who are standing behind me, my husband and my 3 children. I could not have done any of this without them. And to all of you who have helped us in walking countless parades, carried a banner, shared a post, and really just gave me support for the past year. Although I'm not declaring victory yet, as we stand here today, I am in first place. We still have a little bit of time ahead of us, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for everything that you've done for me, for the party, for all of the candidates, really. We cannot do this without all of you. We give up countless hours of our lives, and it's all of you who carry us to the victory that hopefully I will be declaring very shortly. So thank you so much for coming out and celebrating with all of us.
That was, of course, from the Republican Center. That was the Italian Heritage Center in particular. And in particular, that speaker was the person that was running for the 7th Judicial District. That would be Stacey Romeo. So that's what that was. That was her speech. Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with us. You're about to hear from Joseph Kaiser as he leaves the Italian-American Community Center. This is his post-mortem of what happened. Take it away, Joe.
So we just left the Italian-American Community Center where the Republican headquarters for the night was held. Dominic, what did you see while we were there?
I saw a lot of optimistic people waiting for the election results. It seems like people are really, at least on the Republican side of things, they seem to really believe that they may have a chance this year to gain some more seats in the House and to gain some more positions. We did hear a speech from Stacey Romeo, right?
Stacey Romeo.
Stacey Romeo. Thank you, Joe. Stacey Romeo, where she thanked, granted, she hasn't won election yet. She is predicted to win, but she did go up to thank her family and her supporters for the support before the night ran out.
Yeah, I had an opportunity earlier this semester to interview Judge Stacey Romeo, and she is trying to get a seat in the state Supreme Court.
The state Supreme Court, that's
where
right.
She is currently serving as a judge, but not a full-time state Supreme Court judge.
That's right.
So she, when she was up on the stage, thanked everyone who came out to her rallies, everyone who came out and supported her when she went in parades, and she wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the sharing of her posts on social media, the interacting that they did, the word of mouth went a long way, and that she was very grateful. Another person who gave a speech in the night was Josh Jensen. Jensen is running for the has been called the victor for the 134th New York State Assembly District. He did run unopposed.
Unopposed is important to note, which is why we know the election result for him so early on, as opposed to the other Republicans, which were still waiting the results for. He ran unopposed.
Yes, Jensen was up on the stage giving his speech at approximately 9:15 p.m. today, and we did not see any other races called and no more speeches given by any candidates who were running.
Positions.
But there was a great deal of hope, not just for local elections to go to the people who were at this here community center, but there was also a great deal of hope for Donald Trump and other Republican nominees and candidates to win their respective positions at the national level, whether that was or was not in New York.
Absolutely. Optimism is definitely the word I'd use to describe the atmosphere and energy of the room tonight. We'll see if that optimism pays out as we get election results in, but at the very least, it seems to be in a good spirit and good mood with the Republicans tonight.
And that's all we have from the Italian-American Community Center here in Rochester. Again, that was the Republican headquarters for the night of the election in 2024. Thank you all for listening. This has been Joe Kaiser.
And Dominic Muzak.
From 89.1 The Point.
All right. Hello and welcome back. I am Hunter Wright, the host of this 2024 election coverage here with...
Hi, I'm Robert Merrill. I'm co-hosting this tonight. It's been a wild ride.
It absolutely has been a wild ride. We were here for 6 hours making sure that we have the correct information, getting it from all these accredited sources. Most certainly, AP News has been helping us along the way. Of course, we carry AP News anyways. So additionally, I want to start to say that we're all done, obviously, with going live at the Republican and Democrat centers. They all cleared out over there. It's all done at the Hyatt. It's all done at the Italian Heritage Center.
Yeah, it seems that New York finished off pretty early this year, went very strongly Democratic in most places. Of course, they just mentioned Stacey Romeo, who is slated to win for state Senate, which is a major Republican victory. we got to interview her earlier this year. She was great to have on. So,
yeah, the 7th Judicial District. So anyway, that is the information that we have on that as of right now. There is still a lot of contentious situations going on in the United States nationally. It seems like pretty much everything's locked up in New York State. A lot of blue things going on. Now, there are people that ran unopposed, such as Josh Jensen, which we also interviewed this year in our tasks for this project. And so he's obviously the Republican, and he won his position again as assembly for 134. Now, I would also like to say that Nebraska District 2 is going to Harris at this time, and as of right now, nationally, it is 230 to 210 in favor of Trump. There are still things that are outstanding as of right now. And, Robbie, can you tell me any information on the aspects of what is outstanding?
Yeah, we're really waiting on Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada. In a race like this, every state counts. So we're really waiting on those areas, and it might be a day or two before we get that. So we're going to cut here tonight because New York's all over, but certainly pay attention. I'm sure everyone will wake up to a lovely notification of whoever won in the morning, but certainly for us, that's the end of that.
And you would say overall, obviously, it's been mostly blue in this area.
In New York, certainly, but across the board, Republicans took the Senate.
Yeah, Senate.
And then, of course, it'll be more interesting watching the House, which is currently leaning heavily Republican at 151 to 179 in favor of the Republicans. So it does seem like there's a lot of wins for the Republicans tonight, but of course the areas left to count in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan are very favored for the Democrats, and Arizona might be in swing as well. So everything's up in the air. I'm certainly going to find out once I wake up, but at this time I don't think anyone's predicting anything.
Okay. And again, it's very, very razor sharp right here. 230 to 210 in favor of Trump at this moment in time. We're going to see as the time goes on. But this is all done for us here in the studio, and this concludes our election coverage.
I'd like to thank everyone who worked with us tonight. Those at the Italian American Community Center, reporters Joseph Kaiser and Dominic Merzenek, production assistants Camille Clark and Robbie Wilkinson. I apologize. Those at the Democratic Center, the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Rochester, reporters Lucas Vargas, Sharvani Ragami, and Victor Menendez, and production assistant Duncan Harbin. And then obviously I'd like to thank you for joining me today,
yes,
Hunter.
Hunter Wright.
And then our board ops, lovely board ops, Zachary Harvish-Fanger and Liam Hoffman, who is currently sitting with us. Maura Berkman, who was coordinating for us live with all those lovely interviews and stuff you got to hear from afar. Daniel Middendorf, who was our researcher tonight, did an excellent job. Thank you for helping us update our listeners with all that information. Tatiana Wicker and Charlotte Toland, who did our social media tonight. Check us out, 89.1 The Point on Instagram and TikTok. Matthew Haynes, who published on our website tonight, and Abigail Scott, who was a writer for us tonight.
And I would also additionally like to say thank you all who are listening, and additionally thank you to Ryan Harmonette as well. That was the person that interviewed Josh Jensen.
Thank you guys so much for listening to us. It's really been a special election year.
Yes.
We wouldn't be anything without our listeners.
So we will watch and wait and see what happens as the final things come in, and we will see what happens, all as Americans. All right, good night from the studio.
Good night, everybody. Have a great evening.